fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Drivers, start your engines!
Michael Conti comes up at a corner number 4 to the checkered flag. He wins his first NASCAR iRacing.
So after a couple of weeks break, the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing is back, and with it, a trip to upstate New York and the rolling hills of Watkins Glen International. Hello everyone, welcome to the Glacier TV pre-race show here with Will Vincent and Marius Cronenbeck, having a look at qualifying. Cars on the track got 3 laps to try and set themselves as fast a time as possible. And Marius, qualifying today is going to be critically important.
Yeah, it is going to be, and welcome from me as well. Qualifying just being underway. We've got a track which has very long straight parts, basically flat out for half the lap. And yeah, with the current draft model, you're not exactly easy to overtake out of the draft. So the qualifying position will be more important than ever on this track.
Having a look on board with Simon Cattell as he comes his way down into turn number 1. This is his first lap of the day. You see he goes a little bit wide in turn number 1. That is okay. He works his way up the hill now. You'll see we're running the classic layout here today, so there'll be no chicane in about 400 yards time. These cars go flat out all the way down to the carousel, and they will take this straight away about 190 miles an hour in qualifying trim as they come down into the carousel now, down to about 160 miles an hour as they're building up the speed. Now left-hander, turn number 5, and really is a beautiful corner here, but you have to be so perfect on the brakes. You can't brake too late because the tarmac changes as you get into the apex of the corner, and that can really lock the car up. As now he's into the hairpin, working his way down the back straightaway. A good first part of the lap there for Simon Cattell, so interesting there as he's working his way down. His right-hander, Marius. A good first lap by him so far.
Yeah, good first lap, and it is very important to set just a banker lap really, to get out of the pits, do a somewhat good lap, to have a lap in the booth. So you really want to have a good lap as your first lap, but you have to make sure you get a lap time in, so you don't invalidate it, you don't slam behind the wall, as Simon Cattell does in fact in the last one. That is surely going to invalidate his lap as he comes across the line. And yes, no valid lap for Simon Cattell, and it just shows the last turn is going to be one of the most critical parts here at the race.
Especially in qualifying. We saw this a couple of weeks back at Road America, just how tricky the last corner can be. You want to run as much curb as you possibly can in that last corner. However, for Cattell, he took a little bit too much, and that meant that he was off the racetrack. He's got now just one chance to get himself into the field here today. Having a look now with David Corp on board of him as he's working his way on his warm-up lap. So far, it is Richie Stanaway leading the way, a 1 minute 16.655. 2 times per second gap to Emma Spindell in second. So Yudo Narumi in third. PJ Sturdios in fourth, and David Corpse currently rounding out your top 5. De Corpse is about to do his second run of the day, and he wants to improve on that 1 minute 16.967. Currently, Marius, 3 times per second behind Richie Stanaway.
Yeah, and Richie Stanaway's had the pole lap so far, pretty much ahead of everyone else so far. But lots of the quick guys haven't really done their lap yet. or as we've just talked about it, only set a sort of valid lap, as Max Delorco, for example, comes around and sets a 1:17.0, a mere 4/10 of the pole lap. So you could suspect that the first lap in qualifying is always just one to set you somewhat. I mean, if you're in the top 10, it's already good. If you're a top runner, you just make sure really to get a good lap in, to have a lap in the standings, and to not be starting from the complete back if you miss if you miss the chance to do any lap here.
Just having a quick look at PJ Sturgis. He's on his last lap of the day, and he's actually, looks as though he is now lost that lap, so he's going to have one more chance to do something. Having a look, to say, back with David Corps, he's working his way up the hill once again, and for David Corps, he's now working his way back down to the carousel once again. It is still Richie Stanaway, a time 1:16.655. He is also on track, warming up to do his final run of the day, so we're going to keep it with David Corps for the time being. He's worked his way out the carousel now, rolls that car to the right-hand side, and flicks it left down into this downhill left-hander so fast. And you see the tarmac changes once again. Come down into the hairpin. You've got a very thin stripe that you want to try and get that car to run on. You see they use it quite a lot there on turn exit. A little bit of oversteer there for David Corps as he works his way down the back straightaway now, down into turn number 8, slow left-hander. And this is where the car builds back up the hill once again into turn number 9. Really got to be nice on the brakes once again here. You can't brake as much late as you want to. Now turn 10, and said David Corps getting very wide there. That's going to invalidate his lap, and that is going to be horrible for the Corps there, just losing it on the exit of turn number 9. And Marius, we've seen this so often in this car, that turn 9 also can be a very treacherous corner.
Yeah, and in fact it has been the third lap for David Corps already, as we're just 7 minutes in the qualifying, so you can suspect a very short lap time here. We've set at the track with 5.4 kilometers. It's not really one of the shortest in the season, but however is one with the greatest throttle input part really. So you're 70-75% of the track's flat out here, so we are having lap times around the 1:16, 1:17 mark. And also Richie Stanaway just started his third lap, and he's on the longest part really to flat out, coming out of the first turn up through the SS, and really until the carousel you're basically flat out. And even in the carousel it's not a matter of braking, it's just lifting, putting a gear down, and you've so much aero brake really that you don't need to apply any brakes.
ML Spindell, he is coming down past start-finish row once again. He is going to set his final lap of the day in about a minute and a half time. Meanwhile, Richie Stanaway working his way onto the back straightaway once again. This is his last opportunity. He is currently your provisional pole sitter here today at Watkins Glen, working his way down to turn number 8. Once again, this right-hander. Now he's just got 3 more corners left to go, but 3 very treacherous corners to complete the lap. Turn 9, nicely through there from him. A little bit of a wiggle, not too much. He's now down into turn number 10. Fast left-hander will catch a curb a little bit on exit, doesn't use too much. Now turn number 11, you'll see he run a lot of curb here on exit, but beautiful there for Richie Stanaway as he comes past the stripe. What's it going to be? A 1:16.459. Superb lap by Richie Stanaway, a further 0.2 of a second faster than anyone else on the racetrack. Emil Spindell is on track. He's currently working his way down the back straightaway, 4 corners left to go, Marius, but Richie Stanaway has just punched his way even further ahead in the timesheets.
Yeah, and that is a great lap for Richie Stanaway, and he's done exactly what we suspected. His first lap already has been good, and then he had the real chance. I mean, he has been on pole, he had quite a gap to second place, and then he had the chance to just put in 1 lap to really push it to the limit and, try to get the best qualifying result out of it. But it is not over yet. Emil Spindell coming across the line this time, not able to improve his lap time, 1:16.8 again, so he remains second. However, we've got a couple of drivers still out on track. For example, your pole sitter from Road America, Mogafilo, putting in a 1:16.865, 1/1000th ahead of Udain Rumi. So, once again, we've got a very close grid, excluding Richie Stanaway, who really set an amazing lap time here in front. All the drivers behind him are within thousandths and hundredths of a second.
Yeah, and Richie Stanaway, of course, he comes into this race at the front of the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing standings, but 0.4 of a second is just absolutely phenomenal, almost unheard of in the Pro Series. Emil Spindell in second. It was a little bit of a sluggish first sector for him. That's what threw that lap away. He carried on, but wasn't able to improve his time overall. Modgar DG Filo moving himself up into the 3rd position. A good showing by him once again. And Udain Narumi in 4th, back into the picture. Because Narumi's been a little bit off pace these previous couple of rounds, but now, it's into that last third of the season, coming back into it a bit.
the first couple of drivers here to set their last laps. In fact, we've got a bit of a difference in the field really. We've got people like Joao Cardoso or also Paul Ilbrink who are still in their second or even first lap here. So they've been waiting a couple of minutes, and we've still got 4 minutes on the clock, so 15 minutes, plenty of time to set your 3 laps here. Xavier Bussons, however, invalidating his lap, and so far we've only got Miguel Martin, Paul Ilbrink and Joao Cardoso to set 1 lap here. And frankly, they are not going to involve the pole position here, so we could say that at least the top 5 are safe so far.
Yeah, Miguel Martin's first lap was 1 minute 17.130. He would have to do something phenomenal to get himself further up on the grid. Hal Cordasso is on the racetrack, as is Paul Ilbrink. Paul Ilbrink working on his 3rd and final lap of the day here in qualifying. Up the hill he goes. A nice turn 1 for him as he's now working his way down the straightaway into the carousel one more time for that number 74 car of Paul Ilbrink. And as he comes down into the carousel, we'll have a look as he does. It's a nice, it clips a little bit of a curve though actually, and that loosened that car up a little bit as he's working his way now down, and he slowed it down. He's not going to do that lap. That carousel corner maybe just took a little bit too much out of that car, and he's not going to continue his lap. Hal Cordasso is working his way down the back straightaway. He's got himself 4 corners left to go of this lap, but this is his warm-up lap, so he'll have a full lap left to go after this. The same is applying, however, not for Miguel Martin. He's got himself 3 corners left to go down into turn number 9. Once again, Miguel Martin, 2 corners left to go now. This fast left-hander, you almost are flat out, if not flat out exactly as you work your way down into turn. Then press 11 brake, use as much light curve as you humanly possibly can. Miguel Martin comes past the start-finish line, was in 10th position and does not improve. Miguel Martin there will stay in the 10th spot.
Yeah, not a bad result for Miguel Martin, really. On Road to America, the last round, just a couple of weeks ago, he started in 22nd, almost a second down the lead here. It really seems that he's comfortable with this track, being just a 10th off second place, really. So, sorry, 3/10 of the second place, really. But yeah, ahead of him, we've got the regular sort of gap. So Max Dell'Orco setting the last 1 minute 16 here in the session, and then comes Miguel Martin with a 1:17.1. So that is the normal kind of gap between the top 10, the top 8 somewhat, and the rest of the field.
And we've only got the 1 car, that is Hal Cordasso on his final lap of the day, working his way now down into the hairpin. Hal Cordasso currently in the 16th position, a big wiggle there on turn exit. Currently time of a 1 minute 17.259. If he can improve by just half a tenth of a second, he will gain up 4 positions. He's not going to improve though. That car getting very loose into turn number 8. He is going to start this race in the 16th position, and with that, all of the drivers now have completed their qualifying runs. So once again, it is Richie Stanaway up front in that 72 Redline car, a 1 minute 16.459. Get this, guys, a full 4 tenths of a second almost faster than Emil Spindel in second, Modgar DG Filo third, Yudan Arumi in fourth, Enzo Benito in fifth, PJ Sturgios in 6th, Jason Lover in 7th, David Corp in 8th, Max Dell'Orco in 9th, Miguel Martin rounding out your top 10 with Timo Evening, Dave Geeling, Christian Lorente, Thiago Alfaro, Jesper Pedersen, Hal Cordasso, Piero Brizzo, Ryan Terpstra, Simon Cattell and Paul Ilbrink rounding out your top 20. We have a total of 25 cars who have qualified. We expect Reg Richards to start from the rear of the field in the 26th position, but Richie Stanaway, that was possibly the best qualifying lap we have seen all season long.
Yeah, definitely. It really seems that Richie's found his rhythm in the last part of the season, really. So he's been struggling in the first couple of rounds. He's had a really bad throwback at Motegi where he's just crashed with a couple of turns in the race. And from then on, he's never looked back. He's claimed 4th position at Indianapolis. He's had the pole at Silverstone. He's had the 2nd place at Phillip Island, his home Grand Prix. Just a couple of thousandths behind Mogafilo. And together with the 2nd place at Road America, it seems that Filo and him are really deciding the top runners here. And once again, Filo in 3rd and Richie Stanaway in 1st. And they are only separated by Emil Spindel. So this is surely going to be one interesting race. We've still got the front of the championship running in the front of this race. So the top 5 in your championship standings, Richie Stanaway, Davide Korps, Mogafilo, Enzo Bonito and Emil Spindel are also pretty much the top 5 here in this race. So Stanaway is going to start from pole, Spindel in 2nd, Filo in 3rd, Yuda Narumi in 4th and Enzo Bonito in 5th. And and Narumi is 6th in the championship, the only one to be slightly off the championship lead, really. And, well, he's had some throwbacks this season and is looking very strong this time again.
And we've got ourselves about 15 minutes before the race starts, so we'll go back to Stanaway, because you were very right. The first part of the season, we have to remember as well that he was racing in real life as well, and just coming out of his real life racing season, coming into the Pro Series. Those first couple of races a bit sloppy for him, and then of course that incident at Motegi. I think the turning point of his season, however, was that Indianapolis podium, and then those two back-to-back victories at Silverstone and Phillip Island, which really, ever since then, he's just been phenomenal in that Redline car, and he's moved his way up the championship standings.
Yeah, he definitely has been, and it just looks like he found his confidence as you are seeing the championship standings on your screen momentarily. So Stanaway actually in front of the championship. We've still got 3 rounds to go, this being the third last one in this championship. We've still got Spa to go, we've still got Suzuka to go. So this is still way open, as Mogafilo is just 14 points down, and then Davide Korb is 19 points down. So with 50 points for the winner and 40 for the second, that's your 10-point gap already. So Richie Stanaway really has to make sure just to collect the points to not get Mogafilo to finish in front of him, as well as Davide Korb, and then he's running towards extending his gap really. But I don't think from third position Filo will let him do that so easily. And even taking a look further down, we've still got Emil Spindle in 5th, we've got Unai Narumi in 6th, and even Alexi Usiakola, who won the first 2 rounds here, still in 7th. And these guys are still looking towards a strong championship finish, and I don't think that Stanaway has any chance to really relax here.
Yeah, and of course Alexei Usiakola, he started this race leading the way, unfortunately had to go down to a part-time schedule. We haven't seen him for a couple of races. But to go back to Modgar DG Filo, remember he's had some very good starts all season long. Immediately I flick back to the first race of the season at Circuit des Spa-Francorchamps when he did a blistering move on the outside coming down into Lecum. He is one of the best starters in the Pro Series, and starting in the position where he is, it's likely he'll end up out of turn number 1 in 2nd position, and he's going to give Richie Stanaway a huge run as they come up the hill for the first time.
Yeah, and taking a look at stats in the iRacing.com website, you can actually see that Filho is both the best driver from the line, so his average start position is 2nd, and also he's got 5 top 5 finishes out of 6 races, which is basically amazing. Only Davide Korb has so much top 5 finishes as him, but with 2 pole positions, he's the only one starting from the first position 2nd time, and Richie Stanaway completing that now, so they both are tied with 2 pole positions here. However, it is really Stanaway versus Filo this time, and Emil Spindle, who never had a pole position in his life as far as in this season so far, he's been starting from the top 3 quite a lot lately, and he's also had 4 top 5 finishes, so with the 2nd place starting here, start is still a pre-decision here, so we've got the long straight coming up, and if you manage to get a good start, you might be close enough to try it into the carousel, but you really have to nail the start in that case.
And for Emma Spindell as well, his season's kind of come alive these last couple of races as well. That CST Azure car really has been doing a good job, and I have to go back to Road America and everything that's happening to him. But that 2nd place start for him, do not count him out. He's very good also when it comes to pit strategy. On a track like this, where overtaking is notoriously difficult, you cannot count out Emma Spindell at all, especially if he tries to run maybe a lap or 2 longer than everyone else.
Yeah, and pit strategy is going to be an important factor. We've had the little Christmas break, really, so the last round at Road America has been a couple of weeks ago. But, well, I think we can agree that this has been the most interesting race of the season. We haven't really seen much fighting, but between Davide Korb and Richie Stanaway and Emil Spindle at Mogafilo, we've seen just a couple of amazing laps, really. They haven't really left themselves any gap, and they've all been on a different pit strategy. So Stanaway and Spindle, as far as I recall, have had the one-stop strategy, so they were loaded quite a lot more, and they were running against Davide Korb and Mogafilo, who were on a 2-stop strategy. So the difference is really seemed to be marginal, at least at Road America, and it's surely going to be a 2-stop here, but a couple of laps might make the difference again.
And we'll talk a little bit more about strategy and everything else in a moment. We've got about 15 minutes until lights go out for the 7th round of the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing, and we will be right back.
I can tell you about iRacing's precision-engineered cars. I can tell you about iRacing's authentically detailed tracks. I can tell you about iRacing's incredibly satisfying physics.
But what I can't tell you is what it's like to be part of this.
So welcome back to the Glacier TV pre-race show for the 7th round of the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing. Will Vincent and Marius Gollenbeck in the booth. And Marius, we'll just talk about qualifying a little bit more because we see the same trend every single race. We have a group of drivers who are about 2-3 tenths of a second faster than everyone else, and then we have that very tight midfield battle all the way down from right about 9th all the way down to about 21st position, and then a couple of drivers kind of trailing back towards the rear of the field.
Yeah, I have to agree, and even if you take a look through the qualifying standings from the previous rounds, if you take a look at this one, Richie Stanaway setting a blistering lap time, a really undefying pole lap here. So, yeah, you would expect him to be the regular guy on the pole, but if you take a look through the last couple of races, it's always been, yeah, a different guy on pole. It has been Moga Filo, it has been Richie Stanaway, it has been Enzo Bonito, and it has also been Alexio Siakola and Yudai Narumi. And these all together are the 5-6 guys who also dominate the races most of the time. So once again, this race, Stanaway, Spindle, Filho, Narumi and Bonito occupying the first 5 positions here. And yeah, I cannot count a single race where at least 4 out of these 5 have been in the top 5.
And when we consider that pole lap by Richie Stanaway, we haven't seen all season long. And in fact, we'd rarely see that in the Grand Prix World Championship Series also, a gap of that much between first place and second place in the standings. And I've just been having a look back through Mel Spindell's lap, and he didn't really do anything wrong. I mean, it was a good, solid lap, but Stanaway, that second lap was just blistering fast. And it's one of those times when you actually get that huge satisfaction for hitting every apex perfectly.
Yeah, and especially at such a track where you don't have really, yeah, these high braking points or sort of slower turns where you can, yeah, win with traction out of these turns. You've basically got only one turn where you need to worry about the traction on your rear, and that is, yeah, the third last turn really coming across the crest and out of the turn across the bridge. So apart from that turn, really all the other turns are sort of third, fourth, fifth gear, and yeah, not a couple of braking moments. So for the first turn, you might slam into the brakes, and for that turn, you might slam into the brakes. And apart from that, it's really just tipping the brake and going back on the gas immediately. And if you have a track like that, it gets harder and harder to set a good lap, really. And yeah, with 4/10 of a gap to second position, Stanaway must have hit every of these turns right. And yeah, you don't just gain 4/10 by braking a little bit later or getting better traction. It's really just a summary of these turns, and yeah, putting it all together on one lap. I wouldn't be surprised if that would be near his optimal lap, and yeah, it's just a blistering lap. Really, he must have got all these turns right in one lap, and that's what every driver dreams of.
And Watkins Glen as a racetrack is pretty unique in the fact that pretty much every single corner has got some form of banking in it, so they're all kind of off camber, and that really does put a bit of strain on the cars. And when we have a look at this track compared to Spa coming up next week and Suzuka coming up the week after, we've got three very technical tracks in a row. Of course, Spa is the pure driver's track, and then Suzuka in 2 weeks' time, the track which has got so much going on. And really, for people like Stanaway from Velo, from Spindell, from Narumi Benito, who's qualified consistently at the top all season, they've got themselves the chance in these next two races to capitalise that one together. And let's not forget, we've already been to Spa. We're going back there for the second time in 1 week's time.
Yeah, and it's a really big psychological factor. If you know you have the chance to put your car into the top 5 really every round, and I think, yeah, being in the 7th round of the series, these drivers will know, you can just rely on getting that good lap in. You might as well have a little bit of an issue failing one lap or another. It can always happen. We've seen it on Indianapolis. I think it was Enzo Bonito there, who's had, sorry, it wasn't Enzo Bonito, it was Yudai Narumi, who's just come 18th in the qualifying, so it's always possible to not nail your lap. But in the majority of the races, these drivers have performed extraordinarily well in the qualifying. And it's just so important that you can rely on yourself, you can rely on your setup in your car. And yeah, even if you don't nail your perfect lap, you're still going to be somewhat at the top of the grid. And that's just so important because you don't want to start the race all the way down out of the top 10.
And of course, having a look back at this racetrack, as always, turn number 1 is going to be critically important for these drivers. You've got yourself a very wide runoff area, but the track does kind of narrow down on the racing line as you come into turn number 1, and then also turns 2, 3, and 4, as you work your way up the hill onto the back straightaway, really is going to be very difficult for these drivers, and they'll have to get single file as quickly as possible.
They have to, and especially it's yeah, it's a turn which doesn't really provide you with a clear racing line, so we're going to see a lot of different lines there. You can go outside, you can go over these wide little curb things, but the car is of course being raked up so much, it's really low on the front and really high on the rear, so if you hit a bump, if you go flat out over that curb, it might just be that the car rebounds off and it puts you directly into the wall, and you don't want to risk that. So in the race, we're either suspecting the guys to go on the very left of the curb or going not over the curb at all, so staying on the right of it. And for the qualifying especially, Stanaway must have hit the curb exactly right, because that is setting the exit of that turn, is setting the top speed for all the straight coming up. You've got almost 15 seconds of flat out going uphill, and if you don't nail the first turn, you pretty much can cancel your lap already.
And it's going to be difficult for these, especially in that mid-pack. This is one of those tracks where you really want to have a nice line into turn number 1. And it's a fast start, big braking zone for turn number 1, one of the slowest corners on the racetrack. You've got that curb, which if you get your wheels a little bit too far onto, will try and slap that car around. You've got the runoff area where people are trying to funnel back in together. This first lap is really going to be a case of surviving, but a couple of drivers, will want to try and gain as many positions as possible. I'm having a look, for example, people like Dave Keeling, people like David Corps, who's qualified back, the Timo Evening as well, who's want to try and use this first lap as an opportunity to gain up positions, because as we've already said, overtaking is tough, and really, you've either got now at the start, or in that sequence of pit stops.
Yeah, and the start is always one of the critical positions here at the track. You don't get many opportunities to overtake once the race is completely underway, and that leaves you only with the pit strategy to make up positions. So you have to nail the start, you have to be somewhat risky, and we have already seen a couple of carnage moments, really. So the drivers being, of course, psyched up at the start on the grid, being the most extraordinary psychological moment, be in the grid, adrenaline pumping up, and you have to nail the start to get your good race underway. And Stanaway, for example, he has the pole position, and it doesn't really matter how much he's got it. So he's just starting from pole. The lap times don't matter, and he has to get the start done. Else that pole position will be worth for nothing. And the couple of drivers behind him, Spindle and Philo, have all got good starts in a couple of last races. So they'll also be lurking for Stanaway to make a mistake down into turn 1.
We've got less than 5 minutes until lights go green for the 7th round of the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing. Richie Stanaway starting on pole position once again. And we're going to have to ask very quickly to go back to Stanaway. That 4 tenths of a second gap, will that translate into him just dominating this race? Or is it going to be one of those cases that qualifying is one thing, but of course racing is a completely different other ball game?
Yeah, it will be really hard to see. We had a similar situation on Road America where Stanaway was quite ahead of the grid. We were all expecting him to get a good start, to get off the line and get a really quick run away from the field. And then he didn't nail the start and he dropped back some positions. And from then on, he's been in a constant struggle to get positions back. And in the end, it was only the pit strategy to get him working again. So it doesn't matter how fast you are, really, with that little opportunities to overtake. It is down to you getting a good start. It is down to you breaking away from the grid and not making a mistake in early on laps. So if you don't nail the start, if you don't break away from the grid, you're going to have a difficult race.
And when you consider this race in terms of the championship picture, we talked about how Road America 3 weeks ago was important for the fact that it would give people a nice momentum builder going into coming out of it. Now these drivers have got 3 races, and if they mess up now, really they're on the back foot for the last part of their season.
Yeah, they are, and this is exactly the point. We've seen the championship standings early on. We'll go through them in the post-race commentary. So even if you are leading the championship now, with the point structure is the following: 50 points for the winner and 40 for the second. So the winner is always going to be benefited with a lot more points than the second. In fact, if you win, you make up 10 points comparing to second. So that's a great bit, as there is 1/5 in the total points already. So it is a big difference between winning and coming second. So if it comes down to a last lap decision, you might want to be a little bit more risky than you would be normally. So 2 races to go except for this one, and it is not really decided yet.
And don't forget, you can keep in contact with us all race long through Twitter. Use the hashtag IRRoadPro. And don't forget, you can keep in contact with us on live stream or Facebook as well, facebook.com/GlacierTV. We're going to go racing in less than 3 minutes time to run through your grid once again for this, the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing here from Watkins Glen International. Row number 1, Richie Stanaway starting pole position and almost 4 tenths of a second gap over Emil Spindal in second. Mogar DG Philo in third, Yudan Rumi in fourth, Enzo Benito in fifth, PJ Sturgis in the 6th position, Jason Lovett in 7th, David Korpt in 8th, Max Lorco in 9th, Miguel Martin in the 10th position, Timo Evening in 11th, Dave Gielink in 12th, and then Christian Laurent in 13th, Tiago Alfaro 14th, Jesper Pedersen 15th, Hal Codasso 16th, Pierre Izrizzo 17th, Ryan Terpstra 18th, Simon Kettel 19th, and Paul Ilbrink in 20th position. Vasily Zaitov in 21st, Marcus Caton, Yoni Tamala, Xavier Bussons, Andrew Boldy complete the list of qualifiers. And then we have Hal Pino, Wes Richards, and Fabio Di Carmo, 3 drivers who didn't qualify, making us a 28 car field. Marius, final thoughts, let's get ready.
The same situation at the top, really. Qualifying being a little bit more dominated by one driver than at the rest of the season, but it is still the same drivers at the top of your field. And just like we said before, the qualifying time does not count as soon as the lights go green. It is just your position, and it will Stanaway really get the good start this time. He has been struggling on Road to America, and he's under the pressure to deliver. And Spindle, Philo, Narumi, Bonito, and also Peter Sturgis, who's had a great qualifying this time, will be lurking for mistakes of the guys ahead.
So the checkered flag is on. So we're going to go to the grid now. Will Vincent and Marius Gollenbeck. We've got David Ward on pit road as well. 28 cars. We've got 56 laps worth of racing. And we're going to have drivers looking to do a 2-stop strategy here today Turn number 1 is going to be absolutely crucial for this race. These drivers are going to have to get a good run through a very treacherous turn number 1 and then work their way up the hill and try and get themselves sorted out before they get down into the carousel for turn number 4. Richie Stanaway on pole position. He's got Emil Spindell alongside him in the second position. Modguard DG Philo in third, Yudan Rumi in fourth, and Enzo Benito rounding out your top 5. Live timing is available. Go to isowc.org/live. Brought to you by ASOWC and GlacierTV. Cars lining up on the grid. We're going to go racing in less than 15 seconds time. The lights will go on. The iRacing.com gantry one more time. They will go on for about 5 to 7 seconds, and then we'll be racing here for 56 laps around this Watkins Glen International 3.36 mile 11 turn racetrack. Green lights on. Stanaway gets a good start there, a little bit of wiggle as he comes up the gears. Philo already up into second position. A bad start by Emil Spindell. Yudan Rumi looking down to his inside into turn number 1. Was able to stay ahead of him, however. Behind that, cars swarming 2-3 wide to come up the hill for the first time. Looks as though everyone has just been able to get through okay. But a great start there by Richie Stanaway.
Yeah, and behind him there's battle between Spindle, Narumi and Bonito right away, and they're going almost 3 wide here down the backstretch as you've got Yudan Narumi on the inside trying to regain the position from Emil Spindle. 2 wide into the carousel, they're almost touched, and it's been amazingly close, and no way how they hold that. Enzo Bonito now coming around the outside, hitting Yudan Narumi. He's lost the car over the curb, and both of the drivers are out, and we've got mayhem.
We have got mayhem. It's at one of the worst parts of the racetrack as well for these drivers. Marcus Caton off the racetrack as well there. And it's a dire start for Yudan Rumi. He was trying to get himself back into contention in this series, but it all started going wrong as they came out of the carousel. And you saw it was a great start by Stanaway, Michael DG Philo, but Enzo Benito and Yudan Rumi were 2 wide as they came out of the carousel, and then Benito just caught his car ever so slightly loose, and that car just snapped and slammed into the side of Yudan Rumi as they came their way down to turn number 6. The drivers swarming to avoid him. He had a couple of cars involved in that as well, and really the worst place for the racetrack where you wanted to have an incident. We'll get an update of all the drivers who were involved in that, but Enzo Benito, Yudan Rumi, 2 big players already looking as though they are out of the race. Lap number 1 is complete, and Richie Stanaway with an 0.8 second gap over Modguard DG Philo in second. Emil Spindell in third. Max Delorco, a great start by him from 9th all the way into 4th position, and Jason Lover from 7th up into 5th.
Yeah, and Delorco, of course, being benefiting from the crash, and Teemu Ivonen completed the first lap as second, and he's already out of the race. He's lost it over the curb out of the first turn. Car just rebounding off, and he's hit the wall. That doesn't look good for Teemu Ivonen. He's got a bent rear wing, and we're going to check up with him, but it looks like the car suffered some damage.
Yeah, and we talked about that curve into turn number 1. You can run a lot of it, but all of a sudden you get to a point, you get those wheels a little bit too far, you lose actual air on those tyres, and then the car just wants to spin in any single direction. Teemu Ivonen clipped the rear of his car, then the front of his car. It looks like he might actually be able to get back up. He has got some damage to both his front and rear wings, but he's back onto the racetrack, however, all the way down now in the 24th position. Richie Stanaway, still your race leader. Modguard DG Philo in second. Emil Spindell in third. Max Delorco 4th. Jason Lover rounds out your top 5, and PJ Sturgios is in the 6th position. But what a start by these top 2 drivers. Stanaway and Philo going hammer and tong once again. Having a look at the battle, however, between Piero Grizzo and Ryan Turkster down to 14th, 15th. They are in a gaggle of cars with Thiago Ferro and Simon Cattal ahead of him. And what this start has done, though, is has meant that these drivers are a lot closer.
Well, we've got another crash in turn 1. We've not only got Chris Tillorenti in the wall, we've got another mayhem down turn 1.
And we're having a look to see who that is, and that is this turn number 1 is caught a number of, let's say, Zaytov involved in that incident actually. And we've also got Yoni Tamale involved in that. Paul Ilbrink was involved in it, and it looks like Hal Cordasso might just be able to get through that okay. But turn number 1 really is hurting these drivers early on in this race.
Yeah, and it's not like it comes for a surprise. They really know how critical the curb it is. It has already been since the track is being run in the Grand Prix series. So as soon as you clip the curb, as soon as you risk too much coming out of the first turn, you always risk in the DNF. And I can remember the times I've run this track in the Grand Prix series. It doesn't matter how fast you were, your race could have been over in a glimpse of a second there. If you just nail the first turn, get a good exit, and out of a sudden the rebound comes and your race is over.
Yep, we're going to try and get all of these replays together in one for you. We're going to show, first of all, the one involving Enzo Benito, and this was on lap number 1, just as they came out of the carousel, working side by side with Yudan Arumi, and to be fair, there's nothing like Yudan Arumi could have done at all. Enzo Benito just a tiny bit too wide, so he came out of the carousel, they're running too wide into it, and he saw Arumi almost actually tagging Emil Spindell, lost a bit of momentum, and they went to the outside of Enzo Benito and just speared into the right of him, and there's nothing really those two drivers could have done.
Yeah, and take a look as both of the drivers are coming down the carousel now, and Bonito being on the left, and he's just clipped the curb really coming out of the turn, and you will see how Narumi just has no chance of avoiding that really. So Narumi had no chance of avoiding the sort of haywire car there from Enzo Bonito. Once you get loose there, it's almost over, and you see it, he just rebounded off, and all the drivers coming behind them have been either very lucky or very unlucky, and we're going to take a look at what happened to Christian Lorente in the first turn in second lap. So it has not only been Christian Lorente there, it's always been also been Joni Termelet, it's also been a couple of other drivers, so Paul Ilbrink involved, and we're going to see what happened there.
Yeah, and it was Timo Evenen who got that car just out of turn number 1, just clipped the curb all the way around, trying to sort it back out, then clipped the curb, then a little bit of a bump. That car then spun around, hit the front and rear of everything, and then he's trying to get himself back on track. So Timo Evenen having a big incident, and then we had another incident, say, with Christian Lorente in lap number 3 as well. And things all going wrong for these drivers early on in this race. A lot to talk about, but Christian Lorente in lap 3, he just spun that car as he came into turn 1, once again on that bump, inside curb first, and he saw that coming down into turn 1, he just clipped that inside curb, car sliding a little bit, then that car spun, clipped the bump on the second part of the apex, and that's what caused his incident there. Then as he came back onto the track, Drama's driver was trying to avoid him. You saw Joni Tamada. I think he was just blindsided by the car there. Tamada saw what was happening. His car just went a little bit wide, and that My 3AD car just went boom into the barriers. And while that was going on, then he had sadly Zatov spun around as well. And so many cars involved in incidents early on. This is not what we're used to in the Pro Series.
Yeah, and we're back with the leader, Richie Stanaway here. He's been extending the gap to 1.5 seconds over Moga Filo. Filo trying hard to close the gap, but as momentarily Richie Stanaway is just the quickest car in the field. Emil Spindler, however, closing up to Moga Filo a little bit. Last lap about the same lap time, but before Spindler has been very quick, so we're going to take a look at this time by 1:18.5 for Filo and 1:18.4 for Spindler, and just 1:18.6 for Stanaway, which is already 1.4 seconds ahead. So Spindle still trying to maintain the gap to Filo, 0.9 seconds for him, but behind them Del Orco, Levitt, Sturgis and Geeling are quite a bit off already.
Yeah, and we got ourselves a 3-car breakaway. It did look as though Emil Spindell was going to fall out of reach on Modlar DG Filo at the start of this race. However, they need to gain that time back in the seat. As you said, the gap between those two drivers, 9/10 of a second on the racetrack. Richie Stanaway, a 1.5 second gap to Modlar DG Filo at the moment. Right now, Filo needs to keep Spindell far enough behind him that he can concentrate and kind of close down to Richie Stanaway. The last thing that he wants is for Spindell to catch up to the rear of him, and he's going to have to go defensively. So if that happens, Marius, Stanaway is just going to drive off into the sunset once again.
Yeah, exactly. He can't relax. Stanaway, of course, being your championship leader, 8 points over Moga Filo without the drop result. So whatever happens, Stanaway has the trump over Filo and Spindle. So they have to both keep trying to get Stanaway and trying to push him into a mistake. But as for now, it looks like Richie Stanaway has not only got the quickest qualifying pace, but also the quickest race pace. Another 0.5 for him, a high 0.4 for Filo and 0.3 for Spindle. So the difference isn't all that big, but 1.4 seconds, you're basically out of the draft, and now it's really on to Stanaway trying to get the gap bigger and bigger and trying to secure the first position as the race progresses.
Checking in on this freeway battle for 5th, 6th and 7th positions on the racetrack. This is Jason Lover, PJ Sturgis and Dave Geeling. Lover in the 5th position, and then Sturgis in 6th and Dave Geeling in 7th, and Geeling's actually looking, so Sturgis looking down to the inside as they come down into turn into the carousel, and he just breezes there past Jason Lover, and it looks as though there that Lover actually just gave him the position. And that was down on the back straightaway as they worked their way down into the carousel, and it was, as I say, Jason Lover was on the left hand side, and it really did look as though he almost got out throttled. Sturgis did indeed get a great run but Lovatt just didn't form any form of barrier to him at all. Sturgis just breezed down the inside, past Jason Lovatt, moving himself up into the 5th position. Lovatt down into the 6th position. Dave Geeling in the 7th spot right now, and the 3 cars running in 5th, 6th and 7th position on the racetrack, doing a solid job. And I have to say, Lovatt started this race actually in 7th. Sturgill started it in 6th, and Geeling started it all the way down in the 12th position. So these 3 cars really having a solid start to the race, Marius.
Yeah, and you may not forget, for example, PJ Sturgis, one of the guys being in the top 10 in the championship, 9th in fact. So with this result coming 5th at the moment, he will gain a lot of points towards the prize ranks in the championship. iRacing offering a couple of cash prizes and of course also a gift for the winner. So any points you can collect in this late stage might put you up with a couple of more positions. And meanwhile, at the top of the grid, Stanaway's put down a blistering lap there, 118.1. So it all seems to get bit in the zone right now. Stanaway is the first one to do any lap below 0.3, and he's immediately breaking free by 0.6 of a second, and it looks like Spindle is gaining more and more towards Philo.
Indeed, yeah, and these 2 drivers separated now by just 7 tenths of a second on the racetrack. Mogard DG Philo is now 2 seconds behind Richie Stanaway in the battle for the 1st position. Spinned out, as I say, just 7 tenths of a second further back in the 3rd spot. And that CST Azura number 33 car really has closed up now to the rear of Mogard DG Philo, but he's now into that dirty air phase, and he really needs to hope that he gets a good run through the likes of turns 9, 10 and 11 and turn number 1 if he's going to try and set up a pass, because apart from that, really, he's going to find it very hard to make much more of an impression now. He's into that dirty air.
Yeah, and all of the drivers running really wide out of the first turn, so they are all trying to avoid the curb, but they have to go across it once, and they have to go across it once again to get back on the track. And if you use that line, you have to nail it every time by, and if you don't, you're just looking towards rebounding the car off. And we've seen at the start of the race how easy it can get, and it doesn't matter how fast you are, it can always happen to you. So Stanaway possibly trying to push the car to the absolute limit in his first stint here, trying to get the gap over Philo and Spindle, so he doesn't need to risk 100% in the first turn. That is possibly the smartest thing to do at the moment.
Yeah, and I just have a look at Emma Spindle there actually to turn number 1. We'll try and get on board with him next lap, and he took not only the entirety of the runoff area, the paved runoff area, but also a lot of the curb as well. When we talk about iRacing and things like safety rating, this is one of those tracks that we really do call a safety rating killer because of turn number 1, and these drivers do take a lot of that curb, and if they go a little bit too wide and they don't settle their car out enough, they'll take the grass. That does cost them a little bit of safety rating. As we're actually on board with Elspin down now as he's working his way down into turn number 9 once again. We'll keep on board with him as he comes past the start-finish line into turn number 1 once again. We'll see if he does the same as he's now out of turn number 9. He's seeing into that dirty air now, so he's getting a little bit of understeer as he's working his way down into turn number 10, using a little bit more of that curb as he was doing earlier on, and this is Elspin down now, on the back straightaway. I take that back completely onto the carousel, but Spindle really has been using a lot of these curbs and a lot of that runoff area.
Yeah, it's really tricky. I mean, I'm following these drivers every time they go by that point, and you just don't wish they hit the curb, and it can happen so easily. You're basically flat out already, coming from the apex of the turn, and if you have the power down and you rebound the rear, you're going to immediately spin the rear tires, and they're going to rebound off the ground, hit the ground again, and just 90 degrees onto the wall, literally. And it can happen to everyone, and it's just one of the most critical points of this track. It is a fairly easy track to drive, but it has its moments, and that is definitely one of them.
Working our way down into the final 2 corners once again. The gap between Philo and Stanaway now up to 2.5 seconds on the racetrack. That gap between Philo and Spindle stabilised at about a second on the racetrack. We've seen this so often in the iRacing.com Pro Teams of Road Racing that the driver behind can close to about 8 tenths of a second, but then he gets into that dirty air and really struggles to make much more of an impact on the driver in front. That dirty air really causing issues for these drivers, and even though you've got yourself a long straightaway, really you can't make too much of an impression because it's a fast corner then for the carousel, and then you get wicked aero tight as you work your way through that corner. Meanwhile, Dave Geelink in the 41 car hopping over to him, side by side with Jason Lovatt, going to try and complete the pass down into the carousel. Will he make it easy once again for Lovatt? Indeed he does, and Geeling just swarms past him there, up now into the 6th position. And Geeling's there, now working his way, say, in the 6th spot. Jason Lover back to where he started now, back into the 7th position, but still having a good race. These three cars actually doing a superb showing here today. PJ Sturgis actually is close right up to the rear also of Max Alorco, less than 6/10 of a second behind. Dave Geeling, however, from 12 up into 6th position in this race. So these three Inex Racing cars doing a great job at the moment. Sturgis, in the meanwhile, keep an eye out on him. His last lap time, a 1 minute 18.4. Compare that to a 1:18.7 last time by Max Delorco. Delorco started this race in the 9th position, out running in the 4th position now, but has PJ Sturgis, Marius, right on his rear wing.
Yeah, and PJ really seems to be comfortable with this track. He's not only running away from his teammates, so he's really chasing Max Delorco at this point, and it seems that he's very strong here. 9th position for him in the championship, like we said before, and he could really get some very valuable points here, as well as Emil Spindel and Filho in 2nd and 3rd. But we've talked about that earlier, and I've noticed that Spindel himself probably wants to get past Filho first and then start chasing Stanaway himself, because Spindel is already 40 points down in the championship and he's got Moga Filho in 3rd ahead of him. So I don't think these drivers will cooperate in chasing Stanaway, as Stanaway is 3.2 seconds ahead already. They will probably start fighting themselves later on in the race.
And this is a battle for 4th and 5th positions you're seeing on your screens momentarily. Max Delorco in 4th, PJ Sturgis in the 39 car in the 5th position to run through your retirees in this race. Timo Evelyn checked and released from the infield care centre. Yoni Tamala is out of the race. Christian Lorente out of the race. Yudan Rumi out of the race. Marcus Catron, Enzo Benito, Miguel Martin and Xavier Busson all out of the race early on here today. And that means we have got ourselves 20 cars running currently on the lead lap. But we're looking at this battle for 4th and 5th position on the racetrack as they come down into turn number 1 once again. And one of the things as well, Marius, is that for some of these drivers who are just trying to get themselves into the top 25, the number of retirees early on does make things a little bit easier for them. For example, drivers like Wes Richards, who has always just kind of played it calm, played it safe, looking for a pretty okay point haul today.
Yeah, they do, and they are lucky as soon as the race is underway, really, because as soon as you're in the zone, as soon as you're in the rhythm, you're not looking towards these mistakes so seriously, but it takes a couple of laps, and we've especially seen how much drivers made the mistake in the first couple of laps, not only talking about Bonito and Narumi ending both of their races, but also drivers just losing it around the first turn. And as soon as
so I'm going to have
is
to
underway...
interrupt you. Jesper Pedersen's just trying to look down to the inside of David Corps there. I mean, side by side for 3 corners now. Sorry to interrupt you, Marius, but David Corps and Jesper Pedersen have been going hammer and tongue for the last 3 or 4 corners. Pedersen does end up having to fall in behind there, but these two drivers going tete-a-tete on the racetrack, and superb driving by both of them. Now carry on.
Yeah, superb driving not only by both of them, but we've got the similar situation every race there. So yeah, just outside or just inside the top 10, we've got the guys fighting here, and yeah, this isn't really one of the tracks where you get close so easily. So these drivers really doing a good job fighting safely, and yeah, also talking about PJ Sturgis and Max Delorco, it seems like they are under pressure just as Filho and Spindel. So yeah, Filho can't really break free and chase Stanaway here. He's still under pressure from Spindel, and if you have a car close up behind you or close up ahead of you, you will always run into aero loss, and that definitely hurts you in the fast turns. And Stanaway now being yeah, around 4 seconds ahead of the pack, has got a free air, a clean air ahead of him as PJ Sturgis is trying to move down the inside here. Beautiful move, and that's just, you see it. You have to get the overlap, and you have to get the chance, and Delorco, very fair player there, leaving the room for Sturgis, and just that bit, just that tiny move, and Geeling, who's been almost a second away from them, is right at the tail of Delorco.
And you do not normally overtake into turn number 6. It's not the place where you try and make a move as much. But come out of the carousel, a beautiful run for Sturgis. Delorco a little bit on the curve, had to slow down a little bit. Beautiful pass on the inside there for PJ Sturgis. Completed the pass, moving himself up now into the 4th position. Showing it on the replay momentarily, but it was just perfect offensive driving there by Sturgis. He stayed right there with Delorco for the last 2 or 3 laps. Didn't try and force his way down the inside, was running very close to him. Looked as though he wasn't getting as big a run down the back straight away as we've seen some other drivers get. But out of the carousel, he just had a beautifully handled car, put the car down the inside, job done, thank you very much, up into 4th place.
Yeah, that's exactly what Emil Spindler is probably loving to see. As far as that's concerned, 1.1 seconds between Spindler and Philo for second position. It doesn't look like Spindler has any chance to overtake as well as to get close at this point. So Sturgis and Del Orco now settled, and yeah, as soon as Sturgis was passed, he's basically already breaking away. 0.7 of a second at start finish, and a bit more than 8/10 right now. And Geerling still chasing down Del Orco.
Yeah, and Dave Geerling and Max Alorco, this is now the battle for the 5th position on the racetrack. Behind them, you've got David Korps and Jasper Pedersen still battling for 8th and 9th positions on the racetrack as well. Meanwhile, we'd like to bring in a driver eliminated early on in this race, Timo Evelyn, in the 59 car. Your day today has been pretty difficult. You started this race okay, however, that lap 2, lap 3 mayhem just kind of took you out from the 11th position. You're going to be classified down in the 21st spot. So take us through your race.
Yeah, well, pretty decent qualifying. Managed to get a few spots on the start as well. I managed to avoid the big mayhem that was on the first lap, but on the second lap I just brain farted and forgot how much the car pushes when you're behind someone. So ran quite wide in turn 1 and was gonna try and cut over the grass, but there's a freaking huge supercross jump there, so my car just got airborne and I just flew to the other side of the track and straight into the wall, so my day ended there. But Dr. Jake, the team doctor, had a look at me and said I was pretty good, so I had to end the race though, but I survived.
Checked analyse on the infield care centre, but this turn number 1, you know, you have to run it a little bit wide to get the maximum run out of the corner, but you talked about that bump and also that curve as well. You know, you hit the curve in the wrong place, you hit the way in at the wrong place as well. You talk about that huge bump, really just unsettles the car and you're a passenger from there, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. You're just left to the gods pretty much if you get it really bad. It's such a high speed exit as well, so.
And of course next week we're back to Spa for the 2nd time this season. You're looking for a better showing now, I'm guessing?
Yeah, for sure, since we already drove Spa one time this season. The setups are pretty much done and everything. It's just about doing the right preparation for the race and for the quali. So, looking forward to it.
And we'll see you in 1 week's time at Circuit de Spa Francorchamps. Timo Evelyn classified in the 21st position today, unfortunately. Meanwhile, Richie Stanaway last lap a 1 minute 17.9, setting himself a fastest lap of the race there by 0.2 of a second over what he's done previously in this race. And Richie Stanaway really is charging now. The gap between himself and Modgar GG Philo is now up to 4.5 seconds on the racetrack. Philo being able to put himself now a little bit of a gap on Emil Sprindell. The gap is now up to 1.7 seconds on the racetrack. Meanwhile, while we were talking to Evelyn, Geerling has been able to get himself past now Max Alorco. So Geerling can now up into the 5th position. Max Alorco now down into the 6th spot. So your top 10, stand away from Philo, from Spindell, from Sturgis, from Geerling, from Del Orco, from Lovatt, from De Korps, from Pedersen, and then Simon Cattell rounding out your top 10. This battle for 8th and 9th positions on the racetrack, the 58 car of David De Korps, who won, of course, last time out, and Jesper Pedersen in the 80 machine, battling for 8th position on the racetrack. And Pedersen was close about 3 or 4 laps ago, has had to fall back just a little bit. And Pedersen these last couple of laps looking as though he's not been able to keep with that pace of David De Korps that he was able to do earlier on, so perhaps he might have overworked his tyres just a little bit. And then for Jesper Pedersen, he's still standing in that 9th position. A little bit further back through the field, you've got Ryan Terpstra and Pierre Ibrizzo battling for 12th and 13th positions on the racetrack, with Hal Cordasso only about 0.6 of a second further back. And then Paul Ilbrink and Hal Pinot are battling for 15th and 16th positions on the racetrack as we speak. And in fact, they come down the back straightaway. Pinot trying to make a move. Now, Paul Ilbrink looking very close to come down into the carousel. Not quite close enough, however, but to check back in with your race leader. And Marius Stanaway, right now, just dominating.
Yeah, he's been struggling at the very first couple of laps really to break free. But it once again shows, once you have been breaking free, yeah, and you're in the zone, it is getting easier and easier to put down these lap times, and Stanaway has been proving that he's yeah, really the main contender to win this race today, and he's been on a blistering pace the last couple of laps, and yeah, with Spindle and Philho being relatively close behind him, and they are still fighting, yeah, that's all he wants really.
And that gap now up to 5 seconds between himself and my guy GT Philo. And it looks as though that if we're doing strategy-wise, these drivers, if they want a two-stop strategy, really should have come in by now. These drivers all looking as though they might just do the one-stop strategy here today. And indeed, we're having a look at Stanaway. He say he's working his way on lap number 19 of 56. Now, if these drivers were to do a two-stop strategy, then really they should be in the next 2 or 3 laps maximum. A one-stop strategy will be coming in around lap number 28-29. So we're right in that window. If we are going to do a two-stop strategy, it should be in the next 2 to 3 lap time. So we'll keep an eye down on pit road. There's no one there at the moment. Stanaway working his way down into turn number 10 once again. The 72 Team Redline car working his way now down into turn number 11, Richie Stanaway, to put 19 laps in the books here in the 7th round of the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing. Down into turn number 1 once again, lap number 20 now of 56 on the 3.36 mark, 11 turn racetrack. My guy GG Philo still in the 2nd position. Emma Spindell close that gap now, back down to 1.4 seconds on the racetrack. And then we've got PJ Sturgis in 4th. Dave Geeling crowning out your top 5. And I have to say, Sturgis, man, this is pulled out now. A 2-second gap over Dave Geeling. And Sturgis today is absolutely flying.
Yeah, it might be that he's on the infamous two-stop strategy here. Would explain at least how he got by Max Del Orco, and would also explain that Del Orco has been rather safe at letting him go. So, yeah, not exactly sure yet on which strategy the drivers are, but for the lap times of Del Orco, expecting him to be one of the top 5 candidates. He could be on a one-stop strategy, and yeah, we're going to see in the next couple of laps as Stanaway, Philho, Spindle, Sturgis, and Geeling are all running similar times, so they could also be on the same strategy here. And Del Orco is about 5 times slower per lap, so not exactly sure what to make of that so far, but we're gonna know in a couple of laps, as the two-stop strategy should be in around lap 20, 22, 23.
And meanwhile, Jesper Pedersen and David Korps, you saw it on your screen, Pedersen right again on the move with David Korps trying to find a way past. He ran 2-1 into the carousel. This time the Korps with a better run down into turn number 6, was able to get past. Meanwhile, PJ Sturgis onto pit road, as is Jesper Pedersen. Pit road under busy place because Spindell is in as well. PJ Sturgis is in. We've got ourselves Dave Geeling on pit road, and Jason Lover and Jesper Pedersen. And first round of pit stop starting actually then, so the 2 stoppers already on pit road.
Yeah, and for Spindell, for example, he's been almost within 1 second the entire race between him and Philho, so it might be a good shot at him making an early pit stop. He gets out of the pits very clean without any traffic ahead or behind him, so it could actually be a good decision for him to make an early pit stop here. However, it will show when Philho is pitting, and Philho has to put down these laps right now. Del Orco now in 3rd, and he's still running half a second slower than the leader, so he could be one of the candidates on a one-stop, and then it's getting tricky, because then he's only 16 seconds behind the leader, and with Philho and Spindle being around 5 seconds down to Stanaway, it could actually be the chance of Max Del Orco to leapfrog a couple of positions when the pit stops are done.
And we saw this, of course, at Road America 3 weeks ago, when the drivers on the one-stopper as Richie Stanaway onto pit road, Stanaway onto pit road, but we saw this at Road America, that drivers who hit the one-stop strategy and the two-stop strategies, they came right back in together when the 2 stoppers had to make their 2nd pit stop of the day. And really, Stanaway is going to have himself a beautiful pit stop now onto his pit box, perfectly there. 4 fresh tyres, topping up with race 4 Fjord, the number 72 Redline car. Out and away he goes. My God, GG Philo takes the race lead away for the time being. Stanaway back onto the racetrack. He's going to have Ryan Terpstra right behind him as he comes back out. But Stanaway, perfect pit stop by him there.
Yeah, now it's the question. Spindle has completed his pit stop, and Philho, currently your race leader, has not been down pit road yet, and it is really the question when he's coming down. The last couple of lap times have been good, however Spindle coming right out of the pits is looking to be on a blistering pace as well, and it's going to be the question, will Spindle gain some time? Will he be even able to leapfrog Philho? I don't think so, but Philho is under pressure now, and he has to pit this or the next lap, at least that's what we're expecting. And then it's still the question, is Max Del Orco really on a one-stop strategy? Because if he is, he's around 15 seconds ahead of Stanaway right now.
Meanwhile, Jesper Pedersen once again on the move as Vilo does actually now peel onto pit road. This is Pedersen there and Jason Lover once again having an incident. But with Monaco GD Vilo into pit box, we'll see what he does in that number 62 Team Radicals car, working his way down pit road, 45 miles an hour for him. He's going to stop 3 pit stops from the end into his pit box. Now, nice entry there for him, taking 4 fresh tyres, topping up with race fuel. Don't forget, keep in contact with us on Twitter all race long. Use the hashtag IRRoadPro. Big shout out to Egil Singfield there, who is watching this race. And he sends a bit of a shout out there too at JP iRacing. Meanwhile, I've also got Jake Sturgis as well. He said, be right back, changing a tyre. I don't know if he's joking there or not, but Speedo back out onto the racetrack, still behind Richie Stanaway. He can barely see him in this distance. So Stanaway does keep the race lead there. And it looks so actually, he might have built up maybe about half a second there over Philo.
Yeah, he is, and it looks like Stanaway has had a relatively long pit stop compared to Philo and Spindle. However, Spindle also being, losing a couple of tenths here at least. So he's been around 1 second behind Philo. He's now probably around 2 seconds behind. So around a second he's lost. However, Stanaway not really going to play anything risky here, so he's been on a relatively conservative pit strategy, and also Mogafilo has been 2 tenths quicker this lap by, and it looks like he's just short fueled the car a bit for the middle stint, trying to put down a couple of fast lap times and trying to break free from Spindle to have the overlap for him on the final pit stop.
And Philo is actually 2 tenths per second faster on that in-lap over Richie Stanaway. Stanaway, as he comes past the line once again, a 1 minute 18.852 for him. We'll get confirmation of the gap as they come past the line. It is now 3.1 seconds on the racetrack, so Philo did actually gain a little bit of time there. However, by short-feeding his car, he will have to come in for his second stop a little bit earlier. And of course, this is what cost Philo the most at Phillip Island about 4 weeks ago, and he had to short pit, and Stanaway was actually the guy who got the advantage over him. Meanwhile, Max Del Orco, he's still out on the racetrack. He's got himself a 12.4 second gap over Stanaway at the moment. His last lap time was 1 minute 18.736, and Del Orco could be the one driver who could throw his fun on the works, because right now, he could probably end up in about 5th or 6th position if he carries on with this pace.
Yeah, he hasn't been down pit road yet, and if he doesn't come down this or the next lap by, it might as well be the one-stop strategy for him. So he's coming down the couple of last turns here on the track. We're going to keep an eye on Del Orco if he's coming down pit road. No, he isn't. Lap 24 completed, and your race leader, Max Del Orco, has not completed his pit stop lap. We have crossed the 30-minute mark, however, and are approaching the half of the race. 56 laps here at the Glen, and lap 25 just started. Richie Stanaway has led the mere 22 laps of this race. He's been down pit road, as well as Philho in 3rd, as well as Spindle in 4th. PJ Sturgis, Dave Geerling, Andrea Baldi all have been down pit road. As a matter of fact, Andrea Baldi hasn't, so he's one of the one-stoppers as well. And it doesn't look too bad for the one-stop, in fact, because Baldi has been running all the way down in 16th, 17th position before the pit stop, and he's now all the way up to 7th.
Yeah, and I have to say, last time we were on air at Road America, it was a strategy race. You had, of course, 2 drivers in a one-stop strategy, 2 drivers in a two-stop strategy. Once again, we've got it, but this time it's just Max Del Orco. And remember, Marius, Del Orco has tried alternative strategies before in this series. They haven't gone as well for him, but this time it does look as though he's got himself a shot of making it work for him, especially the fact that he had a great start and he was up running in the 4th position at the start of this race.
Yeah, Max got really lucky when the incident ahead between Narumi and Bonito happened, and he could avoid that cleanly and gain about 5 positions right there, and he's still not down pit road, so it really looks like a one-stop strategy for Max Del Orco, being around 11.5 seconds ahead of Stanaway. Stanaway gaining about 0.6 of a second as Jason Lovett has finished his race, and that is very unfortunate, as Lovett has been running in the 7th position so far.
Indeed, yeah, we'll try and get ourselves a replay of that in a moment. It was down into turn number 1, and we've seen it's been a treacherous place to drive. He caught the inside curve, and it was another turn 1 fail there for the Onyx Racing driver there, the 48 car of Jason Lover. We're going to try ourselves, get ourselves a replay of that on board there with Jason Lover. We're getting it now coming down into turn number 1, all nice and easy for him. He just catches the inside curve a little bit, unsettles the car onto the exit. He's working his way for the last corner you see on the screen now, down the front, but really, Marius, as he comes down into turn number 1, just looks as though if you clip too much of the inside curve, it really does unsettle you as you go into the second part of the corner, and that's when things get really treacherous.
Yeah, and just shows that it can happen all the race long. It doesn't just stop happening because you're in the zone. And Jason hasn't really done anything wrong there, so you could see just rebounding the car off the first, off the entry curve really, then getting on the outside curve, and as soon as you notice your line is wrong, you haven't nailed the lap, you haven't nailed the turn especially, it is going to put you in a really critical situation because you're in an unknown territory really. You're hitting a line which you haven't hit before, and there it comes, bump right away, and you're gone.
Checking in with the 66 car of Thiago Alfaro, trying to close down on Vasily Zaitev in the 75 car, and this is the battle for 11th and 12th positions on the racetrack at the moment. Thiago Alfaro's last lap time a 1 minute 19.574, and Zaitev actually about a 10th of a second faster than that last lap, but still, Alfaro and Zaitev battling hard in this battle for the 11th position at the moment, and right now it's a big wiggle actually from Zaitev as he comes up the little corner. It's actually really going to help Alfaro as can pass the line once again. He was actually a full 10.5 seconds faster there. They didn't get a good run through turn number 1, as in fact he's done to get. Now perhaps he's trying to set himself up to come up the hill. And meanwhile, still Max Delorco leading the way. The gap between himself and Richie Stanaway, 10.6 seconds on the racetrack. Thiago Alfaro is close, but not quite close enough as they come down into the carousel once again. Stanaway still in the second position, 10.6 seconds, the gap between these two drivers. Wildcard DG Philo in third, Emma Spring in fourth, PJ Sturgios is rounding out your top 5.
And Max Delorco is on pit road.
So he comes onto his pit stop for the first time here today, perhaps his only time. Lap number 27, this will be 28 at the line, and it is the classic one-stop strategy there for Max Delorco.
But that is...
He might run out.
It's a really short first stint, and normally with a one-stop strategy you're always looking to make the first stint a bit longer there, just to refuel less, but now he's refueling so much that indeed the refueling is costing him so much time that he might drop back all the way down outside of the top 10. Jesper Peterson plays 9, no, actually he stays in the 9th position, 8th position in fact. Davide Korb and Andrea Baldi ahead of him. And Andrea Baldi is also on a one-stop strategy, but he hasn't been in the pits, and that is around a 25 to 30 second difference. And now it's going to be Max Delorco against Jesper Pedersen soon.
Yeah, so Max Delorco is back out and away on the racetrack. And Pedersen is about a second and a half, 2 seconds back as they're working their way down into the carousel. He's got Delorco, however, has got Andrea Boldi and Davide Korb battling for positions ahead of him. And Andrea Boldi, I think, is one of these drivers as well on a one-stop strategy, because I haven't seen, in fact, I have to say, Andrea Boldi hasn't come down pit road. So Boldi, who started this race all the way down in his 25th position, a bad qualifying, is going to try and make some spots up with a one-stop strategy.
Yeah, and he's currently being overtaken by Davide Korb, who is on a two-stop strategy, and he's been running the same kind of driving manner as Max Delorco, as you're just looking to get clean laps done really. You can't afford any battles, you just want to have your racetrack relatively clean around you. So if someone on a two-stop strategy is trying to overtake you, let him pass, and Andrea Baldi comes down pit road and is being overtaken by Max Delorco, who, compared to Andrea Baldi, seems to have made this one-stop strategy work relatively well. Coming down into the S's right now, ahead of Jesper Pedersen in 7th position, 26 seconds down to Richie Stanaway. And, well, I think it's around 26, 25 to 30 seconds in the pits, depending on your fuel load, of course. But it's going to be harder and harder for Delorco now, as Pedersen is also trying to overtake him right now. Let's see what Delorco does. I think it's going to be too hard for him because he's got the heavier car. He's got fresh tires now, of course, but he's going to have to make it work till the end of the race. And it's not only going to be tire wearing out, but also the heavy fuel load, and he's just not going to be able to put the laps in that Stanaway, Philo and Spindler.
Yeah, and the way it works is that we saw this at Road America. There is a bit of time where the one-stop strategy guys will be faster than the two-stop strategy guys. However, for Delorco, in reality, he has to just let Pedersen go past him We saw this with the guys at Road America. The one-stop guys just let the faster two-stop drivers go, knowing that in the big picture it would cost them more for them to fight with them on the racetrack, and they'll both be losing time, and eventually they'll still lose out. But meanwhile for Delorco, he's in that 7th position. He's got Jesper Pedersen in 8th. And I said, like, when he made this strategy move, that it'll probably be a top 5. In reality, it looks as though he won't be able to challenge for the race lead, but still, top 5 is a solid opportunity for him right now.
Yeah, it is really a realistic opportunity, as well, with the 30 seconds down, he would currently still be in the race lead. We're thinking about 10 seconds losing until the race end, maybe a bit more than that. And then he could finish ahead of Peter Sturgis even in 4th, or maybe behind him in 5th. And it's once again Peterson against Del Orco, of course. Peterson being in the lighter car, having the tires properly warmed up and worn in. So he's really trying to push Max Del Orco right now, trying to get past, because this is the very thing that Jesper Peterson does not need on a two-stop strategy. His lap times are broken in about 2.5 seconds slower as they've been before, and he needs to get past right now. He's already stuck way too long, and yeah, Del Orco of course won't let him pass like that, but if he makes the move, he will not going to be over aggressive, I think. But Peterson just needs to get quick enough, to get at him quick enough to make the move, and as far as now, he just hasn't got past him.
And of course, when Pedersen came onto pit road, he was only about 1 second behind David Corps. Now, David Corps is a full 5 seconds ahead on the racetrack, so this is really hurting Jesper Pedersen right now, and the Corps has really been able to pull out a huge gap and cement what is right now 6th position on the racetrack, and that is what the 58 car David Corps is going to have wanted to have happen, while Pedersen slugs behind a slower one-stop strategy car. And for the Corps, in fact, is now Pedersen's going to get a great run, and this is going to be easy for Pedersen. Down to the right-hand side, down into the carousel, he's going to make it stick, job done, game over. Pedersen now up into 7th position, but that gap between himself and David Corps, Pedersen is going to have it all to do in the second half of this race if he's going to try and close any form of the gap up to that 58 car.
Yeah, and it doesn't really cost Max Del Orco that much. You still have to imagine Del Orco is still running his normal manner of racing, his normal stint, but behind him Pedersen is losing so much, and if you keep an eye on that, it's just Pedersen breaking free momentarily. He's just zooming away to the distance, really, and Davide Corps running low 18s ahead, and Jesper Petersen has been running low 19s, so you see how much he actually loses by that.
So your top 5 as it stands, Richie Stanaway is once again your race leader, a 3.8 second gap over my guy DG Philo in the 2nd position. We believe that Philo took a little bit less fuel on his first pit stop, which is why he's a tiny bit faster now. However, we'll have to pit a little bit earlier once they came into the 2nd round of pit stops a little bit later on. In 3rd place, Emil Spindell, 8 seconds behind the race leader. He was close to the rear of DG Philo for the start of this race. However, dropped back to about 2 seconds before the pit stops, is now a full 5 seconds back from that 62 car in 3rd. Right now, PJ Sturgis in the 4th position with INX Racing teammate Dave Geeling rounding out your top 5, and then it is David Corps, Jesper Pedersen, Max Del Orco, Tom Cattell and Tega Offero running out your top 10. And I have to say, let's go back to the INX car. PJ Sturgis, Dave Geeling ran himself an absolutely great race today, and at one point they had the 3 of them running with Jason Lovatt before he had his turn 1 fail.
Yeah, and yeah, they've got the example of what can happen if you put the car wrong. So yeah, both Sturgis and Geeling in the top 5 right now. We remember the race at Indianapolis, the INX team running very controlled in the top 10, all being around the top 5 there. So it looks like as a team they've really got a strong performance here. As ahead we've got a driver from CST Ajira in 3rd, we've got the Radicals driver Morgan Filo in 2nd, and we've got the Red Line driver Richie Stanaway in 1st. And they are from separate teams, and then comes yeah, the INX pack together with Sturgis and Geeling completing the top 5.
And when you talk about teams as well, in the overall picture, we've had a great battle this year, where between the teams, you've got the Red Line drivers, the Radical drivers, the CST Azura drivers, the INX Racing guys, you know, in the top 4 as we speak, and we've got Dave Geeling, of course, in 5th as well. But that's been the season all season long, you know. We've not had one team absolutely dominating, and although Team Red Line Drew Stanaway has come to the fold in the second part of the season, the Radicals, the CST Azura guys, they've all been there all season long.
Yeah, they really have been, and yeah, it just proves that probably proper practice pays off, and these guys as a team are really looking strong, and once again looking towards the top 5 finish here.
And to give you an update on 17th position, Vasily Zaitsev was able to get past Andrea Boldi, and of course these two have been battling on the racetrack. They are both one-stoppers, as Zaitsev, that is a pass on the racetrack for position, which will stick towards the end of this race. A little bit further ahead of them, you've got yourself now Ryan Terpstra and Pierre Abrizzo battling for 11th position on the racetrack. Abrizzo trying to close down on the 56 car there of Ryan Terpstra. And Abrizzo having himself a little bit of a difficult race here today, looking to try and make an impression on the top 10, as Thiago Alfaro is only a further 7 tenths of a second further ahead on the racetrack.
Yeah, nothing is decided there. Paul Lilbrink in 13, trying to close down to the guys ahead. Alfaro in 10th, and all these guys within a couple of tenths. And even Joao Cardoso in 14th is actually not that far away. So around the top 10, yeah, it might be due to the pit stop strategy here. So who's going to take the shorter last stint, who's on more fuel right now, and when is yeah, your pit stop going to be, and that is going to decide on where you're going to be out of the pits if you've completed your second pit stop. However, talking about pit stops again, Max Del Orco, your one stopper here in 8th position, 33 seconds down the lead. So he's already not in the chance of getting Richie Stanaway there. However, he's still, yeah, pretty comfortable looking to get in the top 5.
And right now, these two are battling on the racetrack. So Ryan Terpstra, Pierre Abrizzo, Thiago Alfaro, this is all going on, is actually getting himself further and further ahead of this battle for 11th position on the racetrack. Ahead of them, Max Del Orco now has lost himself 2 seconds to Jesper Pedersen. And I have to say that Pedersen lost himself so much time there, stuck behind Del Orco, and it also looks as though he's worn his tyres out just a little bit because he's not been able to make as much of an impression on Davide Kops, who is much faster than on the first stint in this race. As they came past the track last time, it was a 1 minute 18.1 for the Kops and 1 minute 18.3 for Pedersen. Once again, Pedersen, as they come past the track once again, a full 10th of a second slower than the Kops, and Pedersen right now is struggling.
Yeah, and keeping an eye on Max Del Orco, he's just running across the grass out of the first turn every time. So he's trying to avoid the bump, but by going over the grass, it's not really the safest way of exiting the first turn. It might be a compromise, but it still looks quite scary as he goes across that line every time. And of course, it's not going to really benefit his safety rating as he's getting a 1 times off track every time. Yeah, which isn't really benefiting him in any way.
I'll tell you what, if they're the GPS, it was saying please mind the bump between the track and the runoff area. But Del Orco is on that one-stop strategy. He's having to make it work for him. He's got heavy fuel. He's got tyres that have to last him towards the end of the race. He doesn't want to take too much out of them too early on. Del Orco running in that 8th position. Right now, it looks like he's going to feed into about 4th or 5th position. But as this race progresses, he is now on that bubble that I think he might actually just end up outside the top 5. But for Del Orco, a good showing by him regardless in that 52 car, taking the alternative strategy. Going to check back in on my guy DG Philo in the 62 car. He is slipping back once again. And you made a very good point early on in this broadcast, Marius, that Richie Stanaway has trouble getting those tyres to work on his first couple of laps, and then he gets into his own. That's happened once again because Philo was able to keep that gap at about 3.8 seconds for about 4 or 5 laps after that first round of pit stops. But then, Stanaway once again brought that gap up to 5 seconds.
Yeah, and it's been the same on Road America, really, but yeah, that's been a different situation because they've all been stuck in traffic. Now, as long as Stanaway gets a good last pit stop, he won't have any trouble from Philo, who's 5 seconds behind him. And as well as Spindler. Spindler's been losing time over and over in the last couple of laps. He's always been putting in a really good lap time. For example, the last lap a 0.2, but before that he's just too inconsistent. A 0.5, a 0.3, a 0.1, then a 0.8, 0.4. So his lap times vary by almost, yeah, half a second per lap. And PJ Studios seem to have short-fueled the car there, and he's running 17th in the last couple of laps. In fact, he's currently the fastest driver on the track, setting the fastest lap of the race. And do excuse me that I sound a bit surprised, but PJ is really having the race of his life here. He's been challenging down Emil Spindler more than half a second per lap right now, and if the last pit stop goes fine, he really has a shot at getting the podium.
And I'm really impressed today by PJ Sturgis. He really has had one of the drives of his pro season, and that 39 car has been absolutely on fire. And of course, we have to remember that these guys had already tested for Watkins Glen it was originally going to be run early on in the season. Then we had the issue that the first race of the season got cancelled. So these drivers have actually had a lot of testing time here. So it's a case of they had the winter break, they had everything going on, and it looks as though that Sturgis has really been able to dive that car into the racetrack. And that 39 car right now, last lap time, 1 minute 17.769. Emma Spindell, a 1 minute 18.234. Sturgis really is flying. So to run through your top 5 once again, it is still Richie Stanaway from My God DG Feeder, from Emma Spindell, from PJ Sturgis, from Dave Dealing. So they come past the line once again. A 1 minute 17.9 from Sturgis. We're on board of him as he comes into turn number 1. Once again, you see how much wide they run there. And Spindell, a 1 minute 18.5 for him. That gap now on the racetrack is down to less than 2 seconds. Sturgis is on an absolute charge right now. And Matt, the question is going to have to be from here on in. If Sturgis catches him, can he pass him?
Yeah, and it's going to be harder than that, really, because by the looks of it, Spindle is having a heavier car than Sturgis. So Sturgis has to pit earlier, that's A, and he has to refuel more, which is of course costing him more time. And he has to be as close as possible, if not pass him before the pit stop, and that's surely not going to work with about 2 or 3 laps to go. And then after the pit stop, he still needs to be in a position to fight against him. And we've seen a couple of times, it is easy to get close to someone, it is easy to follow someone, but overtaking is a whole different thing. And behind the pit stop is just more than refueling and putting the tires on the car. He really needs to nail the pit stall, he doesn't have to do any mistakes, and I think it's about time that Peter Sturgis comes down pit road as, well, this is an awful expectation here. Peter Sturgis down pit road, and lap 38 is really early here, so he has to do 18 more laps, and yeah. The earliest drivers from the 2-stop strategy here in the pits, and he's been 1.5 seconds behind Spindle. Of course, Spindle now is in the pressure situation. He has to deliver, but Sturgis down the pit road, and it is looking good. A good standstill for him, and he just has to get right back in the zone out of the pits, because he's not got this yet, by far.
And meanwhile, Richie Stanaway playing the role of Sebastian Vettel here today. For the last lap, a 1 minute 17.755, taking that fastest lap of the race back away from PJ Sturgis. Sturgis now has got the, Stanaway got the gap up now to 6.1 seconds over Mogo DG Philo, and now closing down Andrea Boldy to put a lap down on the racetrack. We still have ourselves 18 cars on the lead lap. We have a number of retirees. In fact, we've got ourselves 8 retirees, and then Wes Richards is the 1 car currently scored 1 lap down in the 43 car. As Stanaway pits now from the first position, and Philo, is he going to stay out or is he going to come in? Philo comes in at the same time, so actually they both took the same amount of fuel in there. Philo actually was a little bit lighter.
As well.
Yeah,
Spindle as well, so he's not on a longer middle stint. Excuse me for spreading false information. He's just been struggling with the lap times, really. So this is going to be more exciting than we thought, because there's just 1 lap difference between Sturgis and Spindle. So they will be on the same fuel load, they will have a similar pit stop, and between Stanaway, Philo and Spindle, it is going to be the very same situation than before the pit stop.
And Stanaway out and away. Philo is out and away. Emil Spindell is out and away, but let's see where he is in relation to Sturgis, and have a look to see where Sturgis is coming down into turn number 1. Then he's actually fallen quite a bit further back, but Simon Cattell and Emil Spindell very close on the racetrack, and Simon Cattell looking as though he's going to try and make a pass as they come up the hill. Spindell not going to move out of the way, so Cattell's going to have to do it the hard way, but that is almost catastrophic there for Emil Spindell. And it looks as though that Simon Cattell will just slot back in behind him as he comes out of pit road. But Sturgis is now back to about 2.5 seconds back on the racetrack. And having a look at that in-lap time, this is where you get the most impression. A 1 minute 38 was the pit stop lap there for Sturgis. Emil Spindell's was a bit different, because he did his a bit differently there on his pit stop, because of where the start-finish line is. But Spindell there, actually not a bad pit stop there by him, a 1 minute 28 in-lap.
Yeah, really, and well, I don't think we've said this yet, but one guy has profited from this a huge amount, because Max Del Orco is now in third position if you take out Jesper Pedersen, who's going down pit road this time by. And this is exactly what Del Orco must have been hoping for, because he relies on people pitting early. He needs to have the drivers right behind him. He needs to fight against them directly. He can fight them remotely because he's just too slow on the track with the one stop. And now he's got not only Spindle, he's got Spindle, Sturgis, Pedersen, all the guys coming behind him. And they need to overtake him on the track, and that's going to be a lot harder than overtaking on the pits or remotely somewhere else if someone goes down pit road.
Yeah, and we saw at Road America just how hard it was to overtake a one-stop guy over a two-stop guy, even though the tyres from Del Orco will be giving up towards the end of the race. We've got ourselves 15 laps left to go up the line here in the 7th round of the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing here on GlacierTV. Will Vincent, Marius Gonenbeck along for the ride. Once again, it is stand away from Philo, but then in the 3rd position is Max Del Orco, who's on a one-stop strategy. He started this race in that 52 car, all the way down in the 9th position, worked strategy to get himself up into the 3rd position. Spindell is behind him, 1 second behind, but right now Spindell is going to have to use these fresh tyres to pass in the next 2 or 3 laps, otherwise it's going to be really tough for him.
So, the top 2 basically being decided here. Richie Stanaway, your race leader, 54 minutes done of the race, 14 laps to go, in fact 15 laps to go. Stanaway 4.9 seconds ahead of Philo, and that's going to be a big job for Philo to close that gap. And frankly, judging on the performance we've seen so far, it will be a very hard job indeed. And Del Orco, one-stop strategy for him. He is in 3rd position. A couple of questions for him. Will he have enough fuel? Will the tires last? And will he be able to hold off Emil Spindle? He's got a lot of work to do. In 5th position, PJ Sturgis, and he's quite a lot down now, just above 3 seconds, but judging on that, Emil Spindle is going to be stuck the next couple of laps before he's been able to go past, and that will just play in the cards of PJ Sturgis, because he will be able to gain as soon as the drivers ahead are stuck.
Battle for the 14th position, and Paul Ulbrink been able to get past Pierre Britzo there. A difficult day for the 74 car of Paul Ulbrink, running outside the top 10, but being able to get himself up 1 position there on the 60 car of Pierre Britzo. Emil Spindell is in that 30-year zone now of Max Del Orco. He was about a second behind at the start of this lap. Have a look to see what happens. He actually closes quite a lot into turns number 8. Runs a little bit wide, however. He's come down into turn number 9 now, this uphill left-hander. Meanwhile, it looks as though that one of the houses had an incident. This could be Cordasso. I'm just checking back. Something's happened.
It is.
Yeah, Cordasso from 7th position is out of the race, and it was down in the exit of turn number 6.
Yeah, very rare moment that we haven't seen any car go off there yet. However, it's still one of the most critical turns, because you've got a little bit of a rumble strip, a little bit of a curb on the outside, and then it goes immediately to rebound off the ground plate of the car. So you don't want to hit the curb flat, which he did, and it just rebounded his car off into the wall.
And we're going to get ourselves a replay of that coming up on your screen now. And it's just to say, how could that so? And it's turn number 6 is one of these corners that hasn't really been an impact here, but a number of drivers have issues with. And they come down into that corner, and you talk about that rumble strip, it's kind of flat at the bottom. You get to the outside of it, and all of a sudden there's a big kind of like jump up on it. And for Cadastro, he came out the corner, just caught the edge of that curb a tiny little bit, and that speared the car to the left-hand side into the wall. Game over there for the 65 car of Hal Cordasso, out of the race from 7th position. And that was one of his better showings in the season as well, and that's really going to be upsetting for him.
Yeah, a lot of drivers here being out due to driving mistakes. Since Jason Lovett, however, who's lost the car out of the first turn in the first pit stop or second pit stop series, really, no one else has made a mistake so far. So a couple of drivers here quitting the race in the very beginning, and without mentioning Jason Lovett and Joao Cardoso, the race has been relatively clean. And by the looks of it, we've got the battle for 3rd position shaping up, and PJ Sturgis already closing in by a huge margin there. Last couple of laps been gaining almost 2 seconds on the last 4 laps since the pit stop. And Spindle is almost close enough to try to make the move, but we will see a different Max Del Orco. We will not see the forgiving Max Del Orco who just lets the drivers pass because they're on a different strategy. Now it's on for the position. No one of them has going to go to the pit road again. So it is going to be the battle between Del Orco and Spindle for 3rd, and it is also going to be PJ Sturgis closing down to these guys. And if he closes down early enough, I think he's really the driver to have the pace to get third position.
And Spindell, he's actually very fast as they come up the hill. So now he's about half a second behind, so working away down into turn number 9, up into turn number 9 actually once again. And these last 2 corners are critical now for Emil Spindell. And let's not forget that PJ Sturgis is only a further 1.4 seconds back on the racetrack into the final corner once again. Now Spindell has to hit turn number 1 perfectly to get that run up the hill, because that last time by he was only about a Carlington half behind as they got into the braking zone for the carousel. So works their way through turn number 1 once again. A little bit of a wiggle actually there from Max Lorco. This is really going to help Emil Spindell as they come up the hill once again. He needs to be a little bit closer than this, but this is a good start now for the CST Azure car of Emil Spindell in the 33 machine, working away up the hill. Now you see Dell'Orco going a little bit defensively, but Spindell, as close as he's ever been, he's looking down to the right-hand side. Will he try and do the pass? Yes, he will. Breezes past, back into third place. Emil Spindell, job done.
Yeah, and Dell'Orco can't really do anything against that. He knows he hasn't got the car for that right now. The worn-out tires, the long stint he's been out of the pits, and it's not going to be a long time until PJ Sturgis gets close to him. And yeah, by the looks of it, Dell'Orco's just trying to get the 5th position, because that's all he can do. He's still got 9 laps to go, and sorry, in fact 10 laps to go, and it's just going to be too long to fight off a car which is lighter but better tires, and it's just going to be a job no one can do.
Yep, in fact it's 11 laps left to go, Marius. We'll teach you to count after this race, but meanwhile, Stanaway working his way back to turn number 1 once again. The gap is now 6.2 seconds on the racetrack between himself and Mogar DG Philo. Emil Spindell back up into the 3rd position, 13.5 seconds back behind the race lead. But now the battle for the 4th position is going to be between Max Dell'Orco and PJ Sturgis on the racetrack. And when we go back to Dell'Orco, as it stands right now, even if Sturgis gets past, he's going to get himself a top 5 finish, because Geelink and De Corps kind of faded for the time being. De Corps is close behind Dave Geelink on the racetrack, trying to close him down. But right now, Sturgis actually has got great straight line speed. And these iRacing drivers always like running cars that have good top line speed. And I think it's just going to be about a lap or so before Sturgis finds a way past.
Yeah, and he needs to get past as quickly as he can, because he probably thinks that Spindler has not got the pace to hold this position. But if Spindler runs free, the more laps he really runs free, the more of a gap he will create. And if Sturgis is stuck there for 2 or 3 more laps, it's going to be surely too difficult to close the gap once again. So it needs to be the next lap really to get past Max Dell'Orco, to get past the only one-stopper in the top 10 here. Andrea Baldi meanwhile down to 14th position, being tossed down. So he didn't get the the one-stop strategy to work. And it is going to be Sturgis on the 2-stop versus the 1-stop Dell'Orco. And if Sturgis wants to get the podium, he needs to get past right now.
As they work their way down into turn number 1, once again Sturgis so good through turn number 1. Last lap time 1 minute 18.9, but they're working their way up the hill once again. In fact, Sturgis looks as though he lost himself about a 1/10.5 as they came through turn number 1. This is going to hurt him, but just look at how that iRacing 39 car closes as they come on that back straightaway down into the carousel. I mean, he was about 5 car lengths back. He closes that down to a car length and a half by the time they get into the braking zone. And really for Sturgis, he just needs to pick and move and just kind of build up to it, rather than just driving that car by the rugged edge. And Sturgis, you haven't seen that car work too much in traffic here today, but let's not forget, he did get past Max Dell'Orco earlier on in this race.
Yeah, so he's done this a couple of times before really, and not just he did, because Dell'Orco has seen merely drivers around him a couple of times this race due to the pit stop strategy. But taking a look at the gap, it is already up to 3 seconds between Sturgis and Spindell. So Spindell is really lucky to get past so easily, and 18.0 the last 2 laps, and Sturgis is running 0.6 and 0.9s. If he just doesn't get past right now, it's not going to work for Sturgis.
Less than 10 laps to go here at Watkins Glen International. We are working away on lap number 48 of 56 here, and it is the battle still between Max Dell'Orco in 4th, PJ Sturgis in the 5th position. Out front, Stanaway now a 7-second gap over Mogo DG Philo in 2nd, Spindell in 3rd, then Dell'Orco, Sturgis and Geelink in 4th, 5th and 6th, Corp 7th, Pedersen in 8th, and then Cattell in 9th, and Tiago O'Farrill running out your top 10. And I have to say that the Corps has really now started to catch up to the rear of Dave Geelick in this battle. Well, 6th and 7th position on the racetrack. So 2 interesting battles going on now involving the iRacing drivers. And Max DeLorco is driving like he's a man possessed right now, just staying in that 4th position.
Yeah, he really wants to make this work. Of course, Sturgis not trying to let him really, but yeah, he's running out of time. And yeah, 4th place still is a great result, even if he finishes in 5th. But yeah, I think Sturgis would just like to fight Emil Spindler instead of Max DeLorco right now.
And I have to say that Sturgis has driven himself a perfect race pretty much as well. And as he comes into the final corner once again, let's see what he does here. And you just notice as they come through that final corner just how close they're running to the wall. It's a bit like the Wall of Champions almost there. Montreal, where they run as close as they possibly can. We saw in qualifying one driver actually slam into that wall, but nice, that final corner really is scary.
Yeah, it is scary, and at this stage of the race you may not get any mistakes really. The race is far from over. You've still got to do the first lap, the first turn, a couple of laps, and yeah, you need to get it to work, and you cannot afford any mistake now. You can't afford any little yeah, fatigue moment really, as we've seen in the season to happen quite a lot of times. So Sturgis tries to get past. Of course, DeLorco cannot afford a mistake, but if Spindel ahead, he's gaining the time, that's alright, but he can also afford a mistake.
So, less than 10 laps to go here, and the story of the day has been Richie Stanaway. He led this race from the pole position. He has never been under threat from Logo DG Philo. He was out of the first place for about 5 or 6 laps when Max DeLorco was doing a one-stop strategy, so he fed into the race lead. But since then, Stanaway has led every single lap of this race here today. Philo in second has been able to withhold the challenge from Spindel early on. Spindel has faded. He was only about a second and a half back at the start of the race. Really did fade in that first and second stop. I'm wondering if perhaps there was a little bit of damage to that 33 CST Azura car. But Max DeLorco in 4th, and actually a lot wide there in turn number 1. And this really is now going to give PJ Sturgis the best chance he has ever had as they come up the hill once again. This is lap 50 of 56, working way down the back straightaway. Sturgis is close, he's going to have to look to the left-hand side, go around the long way, but as they come down into the carousel, it's going to be 2 wide racing, and Sturgis can hold it on the outside of the carousel. He'll have the inside line into turn number 6. Look out, guys, as the run and wide almost touching there, but Sturgis now going to try and look down the inside. They almost touch once again, still too wide as they come down into the hairpin, and who's it going to be? And I think finally Sturgis is going to have to give up and try to cut under if anything. But what a great defensive drive there by Max DeLorco.
Yeah, and he's trying to get yeah, Emil Spindel, his teammate, to get in 3rd position, and Sturgis is losing his patience really here. He's trying to get past, and he's realizing that the gap to Spindel is getting bigger and bigger, and he either has to settle for 5th, which I think he doesn't want to do, but he has to get DeLorco to get 4th, and yeah, DeLorco just won't let him.
And I tell you what, in the laps that Spindel has passed DeLorco, he's been able to pull out a 4-second gap over that 52 car. So it's just showing how much time that PJ Sturgis is losing behind the rear of that 52 car, as once again going a little bit wide there. Sturgis will have the chance once again as they come up the hill, but DeLorco is having to make him run around the outside line. Perhaps Sturgis is just going to have to try and slot it down the inside at the very last moment. You see that DeLorco once again running that car all the way to the right hand side. He's going to make Sturgis go around the long way if he's going to try and do it on the outside. Too wide once again. Sturgis decides to feed back in, but now he's going to have a chance as they come down into turn number 6, and now he's going to try and slot it, but the smallest of gaps is Sturgis, almost getting that car sideways there. DeLorco gets a little bit sideways at the same time, but great racing now, and this is the battle for 4th and 5th positions on the racetrack, and Sturgis has decided it's time for me to go.
Yeah, and he's losing his patience. He will get another shot this corner, and he's trying to look down the inside once again, and DeLorco's just not letting him. It is as close as it could get.
Now he's going to be too wide to come into turn number 9. You cannot really want too wide through this corner, but he's not going to try to cut under into turn 10, surely not. But they almost came together as they came down into turn number 8. It's a bit like the good old NASCAR bump and run at Bristol. They do touch now as they come into the final corner. Sturgis, it goes down the inside. I'm wondering whether or not DeLorco there clipped the wall, but a little bit of contact between those two drivers. He just gets turned a little bit there, does DeLorco. It stays somehow out of the tyre barrier. I wouldn't be surprised there if Sturgis will let him back past, But that was PJ Sturgill saying, look, I want to get past him. Unfortunately, like, he just clipped the rear of him as he came into the final corner.
Yeah, and that was a little bit dirty as Sturgis just, yeah, he didn't expect Del Orco to be so much slower, as he should know definitely that the car is heavier for Del Orco. So, yeah, a little bit of a dirty move, and he should definitely let him pass, as that has not been as clean as it could get.
And into that final corner, I mean, it was a bit absolutely unnecessary to do that into the final corner, because you can't really pass there, but still, it is Sturgis on the racetrack as it stands, up into the 4th position. Whether he gives that back down to Max Del Orco, it is down to him to do so. Of course, the iRacing stewards may have a look at it after the race, but stand away from Feeder, from Spindell, from Sturgis, from Del Orco. Geelick in 6th position, then David Corpse in 7th, Jeffrey Edison in 8th, Sam Cattell in 9th, and Tego Offero in 10th. And I have to say as well, thankfully for Del Orco, he hasn't got any damage to that race car, because turn number 10, turn number 11, there is no runoff area there at all.
Yeah, and just take a look at how much Peter Sturgis breaks away. Of course, Del Orco and Sturgis both have suffered a little bit from damage here, so Del Orco just has to settle for 5th position right now, and Sturgis will get the 4th position. Yeah, pretty much a spot of dirt on his yeah, otherwise really clean performance here. And we've completely forgot to talk about the guys ahead. Richie Stanaway crossing the 1 hour and 10 mark this time by, has got 3 laps to go. Still your race leader, 7.8 seconds ahead of Philo. Philo's, yeah, probably given up by now in the chase of Stanaway. He's going to get the 2nd place this time by, yeah, just trying to keep it till the finish. And Spindle in 3rd. Peter Sturgis in 4th and Max Del Orco in 5th, and Dave Geeling not really that far off Del Orco, and if Del Orco really has some damage, Geeling might get him by the end of the race.
Meanwhile, David Corpse is out of the race. This was down into the hairpin, and the Corpse, as they came out the corner, he just clipped the grass a little bit as he got onto the throttle, and he caught the white line, that car spearing into the tyre barrier. The Corpse from the 7th position out of the race, and hugely disappointing there for the 58 car of David Corpse outside of our screen, as he was running for another top 10 finish, and he's going to be absolutely disappointed with that.
Yeah, it's always hard to lose the car so late in the race, and yeah, together with Joao Cardoso and Tim Levon, Jason Lovett, these guys have been the only ones not involved in the start incident in the first 3 laps, really. So, yeah, taking that out of context, it has been a fairly clean race here. Seeing a little bit of a scrub between PJ Sturgis and Max Del Orco. Apart from that, really clean racing here. Yeah, just the start has been quite a bit of a mayhem.
So, Richie Stanaway working on lap number 54 out of 56. 2 laps left to go at the line for Stanaway in that 72 red line car. And now he's come down into the final corner. 2 laps left to go. So pretty much just 3 minutes worth of racing now for Richie Stanaway to take his 3rd victory of the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing. He came into this race as the championship leader. He's going to come out of it as the championship leader once again. Morgan DG Philo in 2nd position is going to hang on in 2nd position in the championship. Spindell, a good performance by him once again in 3rd. But I have to say, Stanaway out front, really, he's taken this championship by storm.
Yeah, it hasn't been a particularly dominating race by anyone else than him. So, yeah, from the start away, he's been having a good start. However, Philo had the good start. He had the chance in the first couple of laps to stick to him. But then, as soon as Stanaway got in the zone, he broke away, and from then on, never looked back here. So 1 lap to go for Richie Stanaway this time by. Philo still in 2nd, Spindle still in 3rd. And for Spindle, for example, it is going to be a huge run towards the championship top 3, because with the DNF of Bonito, De Corp, and Narumi, he's going to be the one of the 3 drivers to really benefit in this race. And once again, the top 3, Stanaway, Philo, and Spindle, and yeah, we've seen that a lot of times this season.
This time by white flag in hand, 1 more lap to go for Richie Stanaway, coming down into turn number 1 for the final time as he comes down now into this right-hander. This has caught so many people out here today. Stanaway taking it a little bit cautiously. Last lap, a 1:18.075 as he works his way up the hill for the final time. He has got a slower car ahead of him. This is Vasily Zaitov in the 15th position, the last car on the lead lap, but isn't close enough to cause any form of issue to the 72 car of Richie Stanaway. He came into this race as a championship leader. He knew that he needs to have a good race to keep his championship momentum going as we approach the last 2 rounds of the season. Circuit is Spa-Francorchamps next week, and then Suzuka in 2 weeks' time, working his way down into the hairpin for the final time. This is where David Corps had his incident. We'll try and get ourselves a replay of that in our post-race show. But Stanaway, now 4 corners left to go here for him. He's got himself now 2 right-handers, 2 left-handers. The first of the right-hander complete there for Stanaway. 3 corners left to go now as he comes up the hill. Up the hill for the final time he comes into this left-hander. Now 2 corners left to go. He can now literally turn off the engine and coast it from here. It's an 8.6 second gap as he came past the line last time by into the final corner for the final time. Richie Stanaway takes his 3rd victory of the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing. Stanaway dominant once again.
Great performance by the New Zealand driver, and Filo also a great race from the Brazilian here for Team Radical. 2nd position for Moga Filo, 8 seconds down the lead.
And Emma Spindell comes home in the 3rd position. He's coming past the start-finish line as we speak, and then PJ Sturgis now coming past the start-finish line to take home the 4th position. And whilst this was all going on, Max Delorco did fall back into that 5th position, as we talked about earlier on. So Delorco does only take home the 5th spot. There will be some people saying that perhaps Sturgis should have given that position back. We'll talk about that in our post-race show as well. Dealing 6th, Pedersen 7th, Simon Cattell 8th, Tego Farrow 9th, and Paul Ilbrink 10th. And Marius Stanaway, 3 victories. Really, it's everything he has to do now to really go for that charge to the championship with just 2 rounds left to go.
Yeah, he really seems to get back in the zone as soon as the championship heats up. And you said it, we've got 2 rounds to go. Completing this one, we've got Spa coming up. We've already been at Spa, and I don't know if you recall it, but at that race, in the first one of the series, Yuda Rumi took pole, and well, that wasn't the race where Richie Stanaway had a bit of a struggle there, so only 9th for him. I wonder if that is going to be an issue this time, but he's surely going to be better prepared, and he's surely in the zone right now, so no real doubts of a good performance from him. However, the championship is still wide open. We're of course going to inform you with the championship standing soon, and it's going to be Stanaway, it's going to be Philo, and with a good 3rd place result, Emil Spindel is still in the picture.
And for Max Delorco as well, he really does have a great race. We're just going to have a look at this incident with David Corps in a moment's time, but before I say that, Marius, your driver of the race, there's so many to choose from here today.
Definitely Richie Stanaway. You can't really ignore that. He did a great race, he never looked back, he didn't do any mistakes, which is still a remarkable incident, remarkable fact here. Not to have any incidents here, especially coming down the first turn, coming down over the curbs. Great race by him, so definitely a contender for that. But also definitely Max Delorco, one of the guys here on the one-stop strategy. You're really making it work. It could have even given him the 3rd position, but against his teammate Emil Spindel and against Peter Sturgis from Inex Racing, he was just not able to hold off these guys. Still 5th position for Max Delorco. Great race by him, and he's shown that alternative strategies might do the trick.
So very quickly, we're going to show you a replay of David Corps, and we're having a look now as he's coming now out that left-hander down into the right-hander at the hairpin. The issue for him is he just catches that white line on the left-hand side of your screen. You'll see it as he comes out of the corner. There's a little bit of track there that you can run out, which isn't a curve, it's just a kind of extension of the racetrack. But on the left-hand side of that, there's a tiny little white line. He caught that with his left-hand side tyres, then caught the grass as the car refused to turn. That car speared into the wall, and it was game over from David Corps from 7th position all the way down into the 18th spot. Meanwhile, my driver of the race, I'm going to have to say it was going to be PJ Sturgis. I'm going to split it between PJ Sturgis and Max Delorco, because those 2 drivers, I think, have had a great race here today. Also got word from pit road that Emma Spindel crossed the line with 0.3 kilos of fuel left in the car. So we were wondering why Spindel was going a little bit slowly in the 2nd stint, Marius. and that could be the reason why, because he had to save enough fuel just to get it back to pit road, and he had to save a little bit as well on the final stint. So Spindell almost messing up his calculations a bit.
Yeah, lucky for him that his teammate Del Orco held up PJ Sturgis for long enough, so Spindle had the gap. He had about 5 seconds as soon as they started really coming together. So Spindle takes on third position, and in the end no one will ask for your fuel. He will probably say it's just been a spot-on calculation. It has been the third place for him. It has been a good finish. And the top three, once again, very similar names, very known names. Stanaway takes home the race victory here. Morgafilo in second, and Emil Spindle completing the top three. And the championship is still going to be very exciting here. We're still waiting for an updated standings here. It's surely going to be Richie Stanaway extending the championship lead, but definitely Morgafilo is still in the contention for the race, for the championship victory. And also Emil Spindle, Max Del Orco, they've all collected valuable points in the challenge for the top three at least. So nothing is decided yet. However, Will, we have to say Uday Narumi and Enzo Bonito, they've taken a real beating here this time by not taking home any points. In fact, Enzo Bonito took home 0 and Uday Narumi took home 1, and that's not going to get them anywhere. So it's surely going to be hard for the last 2 rounds for them. They need to put everything on the risk card here, try to get home the really best result as they can, because this is not going to help them.
And of course, David de Corps has to feed into that list as well, because de Corps coming home in the 18th position. Meanwhile, run through our top 20 drivers very quickly. Stanaway from Filo from Spindell in top 3 drivers. Then PJ Sturgis 4th, Max Del Orco 5th, Dave Geeling 6th, Jesper Pedersen 7th, Simon Cattell in 8th, Tiago O'Farrell in 9th, Paul Ilbrink in 10th, Pierre Abruzzo 11th, Ryan Terpstra 12th, Harold Pino in 13th, Andrea Boldi 14th, Vasily Zaitsev in the 15th position, the last of the drivers on the lead lap. Fabio De Carme in 16th, Wes Richards in 17th, and then we have David Corps in 18th, Hal Cordasso in 19th, Jason Lovett running at your top 20. Run through retirement a little bit later on. In the meanwhile, however, we have Richie Stanaway on the line. Marius, off you go.
Yeah, Richie, great race first of all, well-deserved victory here at the Glen. First question really, a blistering qualifying time, so we go back about 1.5 hours there. A great lap and setting you the pole by about half a second almost. So comparing that to Road America, you had the pole there, but it all went wrong at the start. So this time, a good start, you could have held the first position down into turn 1. Anything done differently?
Yeah, I made sure I paid a little bit of attention to getting a good start this week. But obviously, having had the one-stop strategy in Road America and probably the wrong first gear ratio is what probably ruined the race in Road America. So here in Watkins Glen, I made sure I had a good first gear ratio and did a few practice starts to make sure I had a good technique for the start, and also being just on a standard 2-stop strategy, I didn't have to worry about the car being too heavy. So yeah, I mean, there's not much more I can say about the race. It was basically couldn't really ask for much more. It was everything went to plan, and yeah, very happy to have won the race.
We've seen a couple of drivers with mistakes in the first turn, in fact causing a little bit of a mayhem there. You've had a really risky line in the first couple of laps in the first turn. Any point you probably realized to take it a bit more easy over these curbs?
No, fortunately I managed to get the car set up quite well to the point where I never had any nervous moments over the curbs. So it was a big contributing factor to the speed, because I never had to be worried about crashing out of the race because of the curbs anywhere. So yeah, I mean, I've just got to say a huge thanks to Team Redline, especially Atsi, for the help this week on the setup. So yeah, brilliant setup, so thanks to the team.
Great result for you, another 50-point finish there, surely going to help you with the championship. Spa coming up for the next round, and Suzuka for the championship finale. We've had a race on Spa, and if not particularly been lucky there, so anything going to be different in the preparation for Spa this time?
Yeah, hopefully I'm hopefully going to be a bit stronger in Spa this time around. Basically, the first race weekend when we were at Spa, I had completely new hardware, which was different to what I was used to. So, and I didn't really get much practice, so I struggled a lot at that first race. But obviously now, having been used to the hardware and done many races now, hopefully I'll have a better feeling for Spa the second time around. And yeah, I mean, just gonna try give 100% to try and win the championship, because it's obviously my goal. So yeah, we'll just have to see how the final 2 races unfold, and we're really looking forward to it.
You're definitely looking strong for the last 2 races. Richie Stanaway, your race winner here at the Glen, and of course your championship leader here. And we're going to continue with Will and Moga.
Yeah, Moga DG Fila coming home in the second position once again. Once again, a second place finish. Then you got to be pretty happy with that, but you've got to be wondering inside when your first victory in the Pro Series is going to come.
Hello guys, hello for everyone that's watching this broadcast. Well, another second position, another good result for the championship, especially counting that David Corps and Enzo Bonito didn't had great results here. So it was a good result for me and also for my teammate Paul, that got a 10th place and scored important points for getting the license for the World Championship this year. As Richie said, his car was very well set up. His car was quite faster than mine, especially on qualifying conditions. I didn't put so much focus on qualify practicing, because this track has a lot of bumps, especially on turn 1 and last turn, that you can pretty much throw your car to the wall if you get a wrong bump. So I focused on driving on safe lines and trying to get the race set up as stable as possible. And also this time I focused a lot on strategies, because last race I got the opportunity to win, but the strategy made me drop back to 4th position. So this time the strategy worked quite well. I think that I would have overtaken Emil in case I didn't pass him on start. Did a good start, and it was a good race, and Stanway did a great race, and I think that he will be very, very strong for Suzuka too. So I have to push on Spa if I want to keep on conditions to fight for the championship. And I would like to thank Team Radicals and Seal Series for the support.
And next week we go back to Suzuka for the second time in the Pro Series. My biggest memory of you that last time we were there was that blistering outside pass into Lacombe. You're guessing you're hoping for another strong showing once again, starting with a good qualifying.
I worked hard to make it happen. I think that those starts that I did well was due to practice. I think that it's an important point to make good starts, and I always practice start conditions. And I think that I have already a good base for Spa. And I know I will have to improve a little bit if I want to fight with Stanway, that as he said, he will be stronger this time than he was on the opening race.
Congratulations once again on your second place finish. Handing back over to Marius Gonnebeck, who is now with PJ Sturgios.
Yeah, PJ with me right now, and 4th place here. Great result, starting from 6th, of course, already from a good base there. But we've seen a completely different PJ Sturgis this round. What was going on?
Well, yeah, the extra 2 weeks really helped me in preparation. Even coming into this, I was expecting at best a top 10, but Jake built the setup this week and helped me out a lot with different driving lines and where I was losing time. So luckily, the guy who finished third in DWC is my brother to help me out, so that really helps me out a lot in finding pace this week.
So the Sturgis brothers not only looking strong in the championship, but also on the Glen. In fact, we've had a bit of a hairy moment between you and Max Del Orco in the end of the race. So coming down into the last turn, if you can't remember, you just clipped the rear of Max Del Orco a little bit, and you both had a little bit of an issue going back on the main straight. So what was going on there? Take us through it.
Yeah, that was one heck of a battle, even pretty much from the start. He blew by me at the start. We were 4 wide, I think, going into turn 1, and I had to run him back down and pass him once, and then caught him again at the end, and tried quite a few times to get by, but he was defending really hard, and going in that last turn, I was trying to get a run down the front stretch to get him into turn 1, but he slowed up just a touch more than I thought he would, and unfortunately, I did run into the back of him, which was my fault, and I apologize to him for that. But either way, it was really a good battle, and I'm glad neither of us crashed because of it, because that was a lot of fun to race with him like that.
So you came to the Glen as 9th position in the championship without the drops, and with this race in the standings, you're up to 7th. You've still got your teammates around you, Simon Cattell, Dave Geeling, Timo Ivonen, and it looks like Team INEX has been very strong this round, so you guys have properly prepared as a team, as we see.
Yeah, like I said, Jake worked a lot on the setup this week, so for the rest of us, it was pretty much about driving and trying to find pace, different lines and different strategies, so I think Jake really helped out a lot this week, and all the other guys are working on other little tweaks to the setup and trying to figure out what was the best line. And the hardest part was, more than anything, not knowing what the other guys were running, so I think that might have been good for us. That way we weren't satisfied with running a certain pace. We just kept pushing and pushing, and we didn't know what other teams were racing, what kind of times they were doing until the actual qualifying session. So I think that probably is a good thing instead of a bad thing, like we usually think it is.
So last question for you as well. Next round, Spa again. You finished 11th at the very first round this season, as we've run Spa once already. So not really a particularly bad result, but not as good as the Glen this time by. Any experience from the Glen you will take towards Spa, and probably looking for another top 5 there?
Oh, that'd be nice, but Spa is usually one of my weaker tracks. I was really happy with that 11th earlier this season, and if I can best that next week, that'd be great. I was going to skip next week to go do real racing stuff, but now after today's result, I'm gonna have to run and see if I can improve on it, because I'd like to get a top 5 in points, but it looks like at this point like that's a really far out of reach without a couple of really good results.
So, PJ Sturgis for INEX Racing here. 4th position, a great race for him here, and we're going to continue with Will and Jesper Pedersen.
Yeah, I'm here with Jesper Pedersen, and Jesper, you've had yourself a pretty interesting race here today. You were right behind David Corpus for part of it, and then the pit stop kind of hurt you a little bit. Put you about 4 seconds back behind you, but you're ready to come home in the 7th position. Take us through your day.
Yeah, it was a really eventful day today. I started long back on the grid. I have not done much preparation before the race. From the last race, I didn't touch the car until yesterday, and then I turned 10 laps yesterday on a team server, and today I did 15 laps or so. So I wasn't really prepared, so it was really surprising. I was right on pace, and then I sat behind Davi for a long time. It seemed like he had damage or something. He was really quick, and I had a run on him several times, but I didn't pass before the pit stops.
Yeah, you had some very close moments running too wide for the carousel, then down into turn number 6. Just how difficult is it to maintain going too wide, on the outside of the carousel, trying to make the move then down into turn number 6 afterwards, with cars that have been so evenly matched on the racetrack today?
It's actually pretty difficult. Even getting close on this track is really, really hard. It's worse than other tracks, I think. So even I got a run on him is pretty good, and but I could manage to get past, and the 2 side-by-side action is really tough, because you have to really be aware where he is and where the track, the track side is.
And I mean, after starting this race down in the 15th position, around all of the mayhem that was going on those first couple of laps, and top 10 finish, solidly in 7th, really must be something that you're proud of, especially as you're now up into 13th position in the championship standings.
Yeah, I'm really proud of it, and I think not a lot of people thought I will be so high in the standings right now, because the last season I ended up in 10th place in the A series. So it's really good to show you have some pace and show Apex Racing UK is moving forward strong.
And with 2 races left to go, the first one being at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, the second visit you're paying there this season, you're looking to carry that momentum forward?
Yeah, I hope so. Spa is not my really strong track, but last season I qualified in top 15, so I hope to avoid crashes this season, and then yeah, get a good top 10 result like the 3 last weeks.
Okay, and that was Jesper Pedersen coming home in the 7th position. Very quickly going to talk to Paul Ilbrink in the 74 car, coming home once again in the top 10. And Paul, there was a point in time when you were sat down in the 15th position, and I commented on how this was a pretty bad race for you, but you ready yourself up into the top 10. Good end result for you?
Yeah, in the end turned out to be. I wasn't too confident at the start, and also the qualifying was not as good as I hoped, as I only qualified in 20th. But yeah, I think I just maximized the result today, and I had a really good strategy thanks to the team, because I think I overtook 3 cars or something with pit stops, so that was pretty good.
And started 20th, gained 10 positions, come home 10th. I mean, you got yourself around that first couple of lap mayhem, got yourself around some other drivers. In the end, good result for the Radical team?
Yeah, I think so. Mogart's doing a great job as always, and yeah, I think this result today is very good to help me secure a top 25 position also, so I'm happy with it. And I want to thank the team and our sponsor, Steel Series, for that.
And of course, next week, back to Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Are you looking forward to that in 1 week's time?
Yeah, sure. It's like a proper F1 track, and probably the best one we have on this surface, so I'm looking forward.
And that's Paul Ilbrink coming home in the 10th position. Got time to wrap up just a couple of things. First of all, some congratulations to Richie Stanaway, Mogard DG Philo, David Corpse, Enzo Benito, and Emil Spindell. They are now guaranteed to be racing in the 2013 iRacing.com Grand Prix World Championship Series. No way they can end up outside the top 25 drivers now, so congratulations to them. Simon Cattell, PJ Sturgis, Yudan Rumi, Tego Ferraro, and Alexei Yusi all very close to that as well. They can, next week, guarantee themselves a shot in the 2013 iRacing.com Grand Prix World Championship Series. And very quickly, Marius, congratulations to those drivers.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's always a great effort, and you forget that yeah, there's a bigger influence than that just to win the Pro Series. Really, you want to get the spot in the DWC, and to have that with 2 laps to go, 2 rounds to go, really is a great effort. So congratulations to these drivers, and I'm sure at least from the top runners we'll see them to look strong in the DWC.
And Richie Stanaway with 3 wins, still leading the championship charge. He has got 254 points with 3 wins and 5 top 5s. Mogard DG Philo in second has not got a win, but 6 top 5 finishes. 236 points for him. David Corpse, despite the pad finish here today, he is sat in the 3rd position. 212 points, so just outside now the chance to fight for the championship. Enzo Benito in 4th, and Emil Spindell rounding out your top 5. We'll be back with the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing, same time, same place next week, back at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. However, tonight, the final 2 heats of the Protoize $1,000 Cup, the LMP2 cars at Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. And Marius, Gregor Hutu has the chance to win the championship today with pretty much 2 top 20 finishes, but we're still in for a very interesting battle.
Yeah, safe to say that. We've had a great season so far, and we're going to wrap it up with the classic round at Spa. Gregor's got the championship pretty much in the books, and he doesn't need to risk anything tonight. So we're still looking towards a great and exciting race, because if we take a look at the second position, we've got the My3ID Gaming teammates, Martin Könke, David Williams, and Jesse Nieminen, all fighting against that. And I've heard that there are no team orders around, so it's surely going to be exciting.
It really will be exciting. The Pro Tours $1,000 cart from Circuit Spa Francorchamps, 2 30-minute heat races later on tonight. Start time for that 8:30 p.m. GMT, with plenty of surprises left to come in the championship. We'll even give one to you later on if you ask nicely as well. In the meantime, the Pro Series of Road Racing returns in 1 week's time, also from Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Start time, as always, exactly the same. Will Vincent, Marius Scott and Beck, this has been us. Farewell. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Race fans, it's time for those most famous words in motorsports. Drivers, start your engines!
Michael Conti comes up at a corner number 4 in the checkered flag. He wins his first NASCAR iRacing.